Welcome to the TheSeahawksNest live stream show. My name is Brandon Kane, and I do appreciate you for tuning on in tonight for a show that is actually one of the longer requested shows that I've had here on the channel. You always got to kind of wait to the right time of year to talk about these kind of topics and dive into different little other parts that get brought up and questioned about throughout the year, where you can't always get as kind of really into it as you want to get into it as far as the topic goes. And this is one that will not necessarily be for everybody, but for those that are interested in, I hope it provides maybe a little more clarity for everybody as far as understanding maybe a little bit better the salary cap as we come out of this show. I do the, of course, weekly shows a couple times a week, and definitely encounter a lot of different opinions from fans on what they think about the salary cap and what can be done with the salary cap. This all, of course, is just kind of an outgrowth of the fact that the NFL with their contracts do it so much more differently and oddly than any other leagues. You'll have leagues where, of course, you can have contracts of different lengths and you can put the money in different places as far as what the guy's going to make on a yearly basis. But the NFL throws a whole extra mix into it, right? You've got your base salary, you've got your signing bonus, you've got your roster bonus, you got your workout bonus. You know, you got all of these little extras, your guarantees. What does it all mean? How does it all kind of work together? And so it makes it then hard for fans to always kind of understand what moves you can then go make, because they don't understand maybe the limitations of what might be holding them up or the team up in a lot of cases from being able to make these kind of moves so that they can go out there and add to the team. You know, sometimes you're just a little bit stuck. Another thing you'll often hear from people is, well, the salary cap doesn't exist. It's not a real thing. Well, yes. It is, in fact, a real thing, and we will show that to you today. I will prove to you the evidence of the realness of the salary cap. You know, dinosaurs existed. So we are going to get into this stuff a little bit today. We're going to start kind of at the top here with just, you know, where you would begin with the salary cap, which is that every new year in March is when the salary cap turns on over. That's your timeline to really lock into when it comes to one flips to the other. That's the big key date when it comes to salary caps, because one season turns into the next season. Last year's salaries are off the books. They're paid for. The bonuses accumulated and accounted for. That is that. Now you move on into the next season. Sometimes people get confused the June 1st item of things, and that's more about a timeline of when you can kind of push a player off the board and split costs up between two different years as far as how much dead money you have to sustain from that player. So people will get the two kind of confused, but it's the new league year where you got to be under the cap by the turnover in March. That's the big key date. And when looking at the salary caps through the years, you will notice that there is an ever-expanding growth, as I'll show here on the charts over my shoulder, as to how big the cap has been getting now. And this is not just going to be for the 10-year period you're looking at right here, where from 2011 to 2024, the cap has more than doubled. A little over a 10-year period, the cap doubles. This is something that I think is an important detail to always consider, because teams build this into their understanding of how to set the thing in the future, how to set things up in the future, anticipating there's going to be that 8 to 10-ish bump as far as the increase in salary every year. This $120 million in 2011, that was the salary cap for that year. This next year, $255 million is the salary cap for this season for every single team. And when, again, just to give you a little bit of a deeper look at this, you can see going back all the way to 94, we've come a long way, haven't we? Because we're to $255 million, and in 1994, you were at $34.6 million. So the growth is highly substantial over a 30-year period. And what we've seen here from the salaries, just something to, again, consider and always understand when looking into the future of next year's and what you actually might really extra have a little bit more in the kitty than you might think you have, because of those increases that actually are technically built in. We have the different type of contracts that are going to be handed out in the NFL. And for my money, there's a couple of different sorts that we can talk about. You have, of course, the first rookie deal. There's two types of rookie deals, or three types if you want to consider the undrafted rookie free agents, but not as important, I think, as much to discuss those guys at this moment on this, because it doesn't really, their contractual hit doesn't really impact the cap that much substantially compared to the others. You've got your first round contracts. and you've got your second through seventh round contracts that are handed out. First round contracts are going to get 4-year deals, and then they've got then a 5th-year option, and then the 5th-year option is going to be determined by playing time. Have they gone to one Pro Bowl? Have they gone to multiple Pro Bowls? All of that stuff will kind of factor in. It's a little bit like the compensatory system. It's a bit of a secret sauce for the NFL in determining sometimes that first round, 5th round, the first round, 5th year of their contract. That's a mouthful to say. So one more reason I do point to at times why it's not always as good a thing as some people will think, in a way to use that as a club control method for the player. Because even if that player's been balling out, he's still going to have a really high cap hit for that 5th year. And we're seeing more and more teams, of course, decline that 5th year. Now the cost is a little too high for us, including us with Jordan Brooks a couple of years ago. The other contract you have with the 2nd through the 7th round picks are going to be 3-year contracts with a 4th restricted tag year. So you have basically 4 years of club control on these guys through that span. Everything is slotted through the draft. There is no, I can hold out and get a little bit of extra money. Everybody's going to be paid a certain mark. Why you had, for instance, Devin Witherspoon holding out last year was all about guaranteed money. And we'll get into guarantees in a second. I don't want to get lost too much in the woods on this one, but it's what that whole thing was pushing for. It wasn't actually for any extra money there, that holdout. All rookies are going to make the same thing. It's just slotted into those contracts. So one of the good sides of being through the 2nd and 7th round is that you're going to have a good opportunity at that point to become a free agent after year 4, or have maybe a better opportunity to force the issue after year 3 for a contract extension if you've outplayed it. Tends to be what we kind of see with those guys, like we had with, for instance, DK Metcalf. So those are the salary structures on rookies. On NFL players, you can do a 4-year deal, you can do a 5-year deal, you can do a 10-year deal, like we saw Patrick Mahomes sign a couple of years ago. There's no restriction at all on how many years you can do a contract. And you can put that contract together kind of how you see fit through time. The really important parts of the deal and the parameters of the deal, and this is why I wanted to kind of put guarantees on the backside for a second, because that's kind of its own thing. The real important thing here to consider is the base salary with the bonus structure set up. As much as the bonus structure set up as you look at it, because the bonus is what's going to be given to the player at the time that they sign the deal. Say, hey, you signed this contract. They say, thank you very much. You say, here's your check, which is a bonus check we're giving you. And you will go through a couple of scenarios here of different type of contracts that are given out and how this bonus works together with the base. But if you have a 10-year deal, you might have the 10-year deal, but you're only going to have that, whatever bonus is set up is in that first 4 years spread out. If it's $40 million, it'll be 10, 10, 10, 10. But so it's not going to go to year 5, 6, 7 of the deal at that point. There might be some structured in maybe bonuses within that deal or guarantees within that deal. But as far as the pure, just when you hear a signing bonus, which is always what you usually hear about, along with how much the contract is in total, think 4 years or less as far as how long the contract is going to take to measure out. Now, likewise, on the other end of the scale, of course, you're going to have 1 year, 2 year, 3 year deals. The bonus money on any deal, though, is going to be equally accounted for all the years of the contract up to 4 years. So if it's a 3-year deal and, you had it at, 12, 4 million, let's say it's a $12 million bonus structure, like it's a $20 million, $25 million contract and 12 million of it is bonus and it's 4 years, then that equally gets spliced up by 3 years. And I will show a little bit some examples of this in a second. I just want to, this is the part that gets a little bit lost at times on how that bonus kind of gets delved out and how it gets handed out. So that's the way everything gets kind of chopped up on that as far as the salary structure goes. It can be more, after you get outside the rookie deal, more open-ended. It can be a 1-year deal. It can be the multi-year deal, like I said. But the bonus, if you're giving a guy a bonus on a 2-year deal, like we did Noah Fant, that bonus equally splits between the 2 years. Okay? 3 years equally splits between the 3 years. 4 years equally splits between the 4 years. That's why it's very important at times to really pay close attention on that bonus and then look at that with the base, because those are two very important parts. You've got the base salary, which is what I'm going to earn on the yearly basis. I get a paycheck in the NFL throughout the span of the year, right? And so my base will be that paycheck chopped up throughout the whole course of the year. I've already got the bonus check. Now here will be my base salary given to me throughout the course of the season. So it's the base plus that bonus that makes up really the structure of how much money a guy is really getting. There are guarantees, but that's again more of a, I think, insurance kind of thing more than it is inflating or increasing the contract. Now, there are extra little bonuses that can be built within, like I said, workout bonus, roster bonus. You're on the roster at this time. There are a lot of different type of bonuses that can be applied as an incentive to the contract. And that just works in as again, kind of just, it ends up being basically like a bonus that's given after you, of course, hit your mark or you receive that. I'm on the roster 15 games, then you eventually are going to be due that bonus. So it's not something that's given to you on the forefront. You can kind of designate the incentives on the front or the back. There's a little bit of ability on this to not necessarily have to just pay the cost on the front. You can have it wait out a year, but it just all depends on how the team designates within the contract that how much they designate within the contract to have that where they want to put that. There's a lot of kind of flexibility on teams on where they can kind of structure some of this stuff, especially with some of that incentive stuff. Teams can roll money over. The Seattle Seahawks had about $4 or $5 million, I think, that they were able to roll over from last year's cap into this season. So that's always a nice thing if you can pull that off and do that, of course, because that then increases your salary cap past, we're at $255 million. So I believe Seattle gets to be up to like 260 this year. So it's a nice thing when you're able to roll things over. That's another key part of the cap. Teams will have to spend over a 4-year period 89% of their salary cap. So you might be at 85%, 85%, then you go 98% that final year. It offsets you to 89%, but the CBA dictates an NFL team over a 4-year period has to pay 89% of the cap. No team has ever pushed this mark or gotten close to it. So that's not really ever happened, much like no team has ever been over the salary cap, something that you're not going to see. You have also some things like franchise tags, restricted tags. The restricted tags tend to be put onto those guys that are not first-round players, but the second, third-round players. They get those, you can have that. That's that 4th-year kind of option thing that they get. The first-round guy gets the 5-year contract. You get the 3, but the team gets that 4th year where they get to kind of still control you. And that's basically what that restricted tag is. They put a certain salary amount to you. No other team can really bid on you. You still, for all intents and purposes, belong to your home team. And then once you get through that 4th year, you're a pure street free agent at that point, unless, of course, a team designates you as a franchise tag player, which is a 1-year contract given out to players. And the salaries, the average, I think, of the top 5 of the position is what you're paid to that player. So something you see teams, another thing teams very rarely want to give out anymore is the franchise tag. Players hate it. So you even see it rarely put on because of that too, because the team might be willing to do it, but then they're just going to piss the player off. They're like, let's not go down that line. So you've got the base, you've got a signing bonus. I get that money at the time. You've got a workout bonus. Did you show up for this? Could you keep your weight under 335 pounds for 265 days straight? These kind of things, that would be like a workout bonus. Did you show up for these OTAs as you stipulate, at least 10 optional OTAs throughout the offseason? Yes, I did. Okay, here's your workout bonus. And like I said before, the roster bonus is one where if I'm on the roster by ye date, then I get this roster bonus essentially and what you're going to hand me. So let's look at a little bit of the structure of contracts. As I said here a second ago on this, you have pretty much the important part of the contracts are going to be a little bit like this, where you're going to have your base, you're going to have your bonus. These are the 2 elements that make up really the contract yearly on what you're paying for the player. There are, like I say, those roster bonuses and workout bonuses, and those factor in too, but they're treated like a bonus because they're paid after. Think of base now and signing bonus now. All those other kind of bonuses later. I can kind of simplify that down a little bit. So year 1 on this very deal is just an example deal. I'm going to walk through a couple on this that I want to show you on. But in this deal, you've got, for instance, the base will be 12.5 and then the bonus and how much it hits 7.5. So the cap hit that year will be $20 million. We have a $255 million cap. $20 million would come off for this given player. What would a deal look like? What would some examples of deals look like if we're walking through this just a little bit? Well, you've got player A here. We're going to go through a couple of scenarios. Player A has signed a 4-year deal at $80 million with a $30 million signing bonus. So let's chop it up. Easy peasy. I choose some round numbers here to hopefully make it a little more digestible. Year 1, everything works out like I told you before, where the bonus structure is going to be evenly carved up over a 4-year span. $30 million, 4-year span, $7.5 million. We get to $30 million bonus, right? Very simple. If you've got $30 million on the bonus, then you've got $50 million that next has to be put into either A, base, or roster bonuses, or, when I say $30 million bonus, I mean signing bonus there. So theoretically, you can put this in a couple other places, but for the sake of this deal and simplicity at times in this, and again, this gets very complicated if you go too far down the line in some of this stuff. Let's chop the base up evenly for the sake of this deal, where we put it at 12.5, 12.5, 12.5. So you could put a deal like this together on an $80 million deal. And I presented this as the first example because I think in fans' minds, when they see a signing, this is what they think. And what I mean by that is that it's the base that I want you to kind of concentrate in on here, where that's the part that is not going to be evenly carved up over the deal. The bonus will, the base will not. And what you'll tend to see with the base is a little bit more of a structure that's going to be akin to something like this. So instead of what we had before, we got the same deal, 4-year, $80 million deal, $30 million bonus, right? And actually, I messed this up where I spun the bonus. I meant to spin the base on this. So this example got messed up. Yeah, that sucks. Okay, so when you think of the bonus, think of the, this example's not going to work because I messed it up here. So hold on just a second here. So think of it more like this. And I'm going to have to kind of roughly do this because I messed it up a little bit. Sorry about that, guys. I thought I had this all set, and I messed this part up a little bit. So let's keep the base the same. But what you're more going to tend to get here with the player A scenario really is something more like this kind of, right? And don't, on the final deal, don't add on that. But you're going to see the base slowly add up. The bonus will stay the same. The base will slowly start to climb with time. That's typically of what you're going to see on this kind of structure of things. You do have as well a way of setting this up. I want to show one other thing here, which is, so what we'll tend to get at times as well. I got my things all backwards on this, which drives me crazy. So what we'll tend to see as well is a deal where another thing you'll see on this is this very same kind of deal, right? And instead of, it really being worth this much, what you're going to get is you're going to get a deal where, okay, the bonus will be in that $7.5 million range. But let's say in year 1, the base is really down at like 3.5. And then year 2, we get into the deal. And again, let's say we get back to, this is with that bonus situation at 20 million basically, or 30 million, over 4 years. Okay. So then we get to that. And again, now this starts to rise up a little bit with time. And then we get to year 3. And again, 7.5 million. But we get the base now going up to like 8 million. Okay. I have to do this on the fly because my examples were wrong in how I set this up. I want to show you this though, because this is what an agent does. Okay. A deal gets announced. First thing, you hear about it. Everybody freaks out. Why? Because of this. Because you have player A with the first couple of years, you'll notice here with his base salary, the first part's the bonus, second part is the base, okay? So this guy here, this gets announced by the agent. Oh my God, I got a great deal for my guy. 4-year, $80 million, $30 million bonus. It was amazing. Amazing. But what is this deal really at the end of the day? It's more of like, I would say, this deal is more like a 2-year, $24 million deal. Y'all see that? You see how I did that? Now I'm going to take dead money if I did that. So let's say we have one get through 3 years and get no dead money. Because that's the part on this one. I don't like this. And there's like the bonus. I wish I got the example a little bit better for you guys on this. But because there is some dead money you're hitting on this. So, okay, you come back to me and you go, okay, yeah, you got the $24 million. That's the 2 years. That's the real money in the first 2 years of the deal. The third year of the deal, though, you would save $500,000 on the year 3, right? Because I've got the base at 8, 7.5 is the bonus. So I still save collectively $5 million by getting rid of that player, but I've got the $7.5 million remaining in year 4. So that means that there's still $8 million I have to eat by moving on from that player in year 3 of that deal. I get to year 3 though, and past year 3 of the deal. So now 3 years of the bonus is bled off the books. Okay. We're into year 4. This is the place where agents go and they put this out as a report that I got these guys all this money, but you were never going to get to year 4 of this deal. And I'm dealing on this representative with a little bit of a higher, if you had this down more at like $20 million bonus and then something like this, or yeah, sorry, 4 or 5. I'm not good at math. So we got a $5 million, more of a $5 million, I guess, bonus on this, where you could get maybe even easier to getting out from under it after year 3 there, or after year 2 even here. So again, $5 million each instead of that 20. Take the 80, ignore the $80 million. It's more like whatever, 18, 16. All right, so it's more like 35. Sorry, guys. I'm having to fix this on the fly a little bit. I had set this up, but I didn't do it right. So this is what agents tend to do. Fans will freak out because they'll concentrate on the bottom line big number of it. They won't go back to really what the number is. Even here, still in year 3, as you say, if I change the example up from so much bonus money to taking it down from 30 to 20 million, we get to year 3. Okay, so 2 years of the bonus money's off the books. We have 2 years left of bonus money. If I release this guy in year 3, if I release him then before that season, I've got $10 million of dead bonus money left on the books. That's what that 2 5s are. The base though was 8. So we take that $10 million and we, basically it's negative $2 million would be left on the books at that point by year 3. But if we get to year 4 of the deal, now we only have $5 million left to eat on the books, so to speak. And so that base is the big part of what's driving this contract, conceptually speaking, right? So he gets released here and there's $5 million of dead money, but you're saving $13 million collectively there by that year 4. So it's always important to look at the salary structure and how stuff is set up along with the bonus money, because that can sometimes send you into a bad, kind of place as far as it can kind of cement out. So 3-year deal, 4-year deal, it all worked kind of the same way, where it doesn't really matter the amount of years, it just chops up evenly. And the base can be anything you want the base to be. And teams typically will do this, where the base salary goes very low first, climbs up a bit more, and then by the end, you're in a very dramatic place, in such a dramatic place where there tends to be a lot of money saved. And keep this in mind, because I'm going to show you guys here in a second the Seattle Seahawks salary cap situation for next year to kind of get this a little bit across. Now, there is another option in doing a contract that is not one I recommend. This is what we call going through the dark forest. This is also called the Saints method. Some have referred to it as the nuclear option. This is where you sign a player to a deal and you put in what's called a void year. A void year can be stamped onto any contract at any point in time as a final year, where you're giving them basically this bonus money, but you're not really giving it to them or you've already given it to them. The money's in the books, the money's in the hand of the player, but you're putting this money in, specifically just purposely pushing the money onto a particular year of your salary cap. So player A may be retired and gone. You then are still having to look at spending that extra money. This is a go for it kind of move. We saw the Seahawks do this a couple of years ago, but they didn't go all the way with it, of course, because they still left enough money on their books they could roll the cap space over. But this puts teams in a lot of peril. And this is a lot of when people talk about, well, the salary cap isn't real. It doesn't exist. It's a figment of your imagination. No, it's not. It's that team ends up having to come back and pay that price. The Saints do have to pay this on a yearly basis, where what they're doing is there's these void years in there, and then they're counter putting them together then with contracts that have a lot of flexibility. High amount of base salary, like I just showed you on one of those examples. They'll have a high amount of base on a player that they can then convert to bonus and suddenly gain a lot of space. Again, now pushing more of that stuff into the cap. They're never kind of feeling the full pain or measure of the pain of the deals at that point, truly. And then they are also at the same time. It might not seem like they are, but they are, because of, again, how much of the fact every year they've got to do these kind of acrobatics in order to get themselves under the salary cap. They're 50, 60, 70, sometimes $80 million over the cap just before that March period to try to figure things out and how they're going to do it. And it doesn't make it, I think, easy for them to put their roster together. But the void factor is something teams can do at any time to create space. Teams have done it. People also point to the Rams, of course, of being those teams that, the Rams are another team a couple years ago that were just not playing even by the cap rules. I think we've gotten a chance to see that in actuality, no, they had to play by the cap rules. If we look at it a little bit closer, didn't they? Because last year, they took it down and said, we got to reset this thing. And look, they got to the playoffs, and Stafford had near an MVP year, and Puka Nuka was awesome. And I'm not taking away from that, but they had to deal with a little bit like what we had to deal with 2 years ago. We're going to feel this full pain of measure this year. We're not going to let this, we're not going to Saint it. We're not going to New Orleans it. We're going to go slow play this pain out over a couple of periods. Let's take the Band-Aid and rip it off with, the full force of tying one end of the floss to the thing and the other end to a car and saying, hit it, one of those Tesla cars too, where it's like 0 to 60 in a second and a half. And that's what the Rams did last year. $57 million of dead money, still made the playoffs, but they had to eat that money that inhibited them, and if you think about it, hey, they made the playoffs last year. What damage could they have done if they had $57 million to spend? Maybe a question nobody's kind of asking on that one, but could be interesting. So in regards to these contractual structures, what happens when a player gets released? What's the, what is the manner of how this breaks down? Well, if a player gets released, and we go back to kind of our initial, look here with our initial example of this, the player gets released. And it depends, of course, all on when is the player getting released. Is it year one? Is it year two? As we saw with Russell Wilson, the big part that hit the Denver Broncos is that they had just the contract kicking in with all of that bonus money. So though they wanted to get out from the base and all that other stuff, they had years of acceleration of bonuses and guarantees that ended up basically putting them under the shelf, where that's why they had to eat so much over the next couple of years to make that happen. And so when you release a player, in this example, let's say it's a player that's after year 3 and we get into year 4, and you have $7.5 million of bonus money left, but they're on $17 million of base. The team wants to save $9.5 million by moving on from this said player. So they do that. That player is then released. Now, the player can be released at any time at that point in that year 3, or any time along through the contract, of course, as Russell has shown. But there can be parameters within the deal that can make it to where you just can't simply cut the guy if he's being cut for a couple of different reasons that have been stipulated in the contract. If there's skill, cap, and injury are the 3 items that can be stipulated in a contract as to if a guy is cut for, that he can still then be due money. And injuries is one of this. This is one of the things that drives me crazy a little bit about NFL players at times, railing against the fact that, they can cut you at any time. You break your nail and they'll cut you because you don't mean nothing. It's like, well, a lot of these contracts now have that injury thing in there where you got to pass a physical. So they can't really, if you can pass a physical, can they? And I'm sure there's some shenanigans. I'm not trying to be pro owner here on this one, but yes, indeed, there are injury type of guarantees within the structure you can put in there that even if you release them at that point, they're due to get this amount of dollars from it, or you've got to come to an injury settlement with them between player and team. There is a little bit of kind of a little bit more within this that gets into kind of more nitty gritty with this, but in basic tones, it's not just always as easy as simply with every player, well, let them go, save all the money. That can be the way at times, but a big part of that is them passing in this modern age kind of a physical, because a lot of these injury riders are put into these contracts a lot. So it makes it less able for you able to do that. So if you release that player, they save that money. The player goes back out onto the market. Of course, with like the compensatory system, a release player doesn't count on the compensatory system if this happens around free agent period or any time of year. There is then an offset to this where if the player then goes and signs somewhere, then that much of that player's contract comes off of being owed by the team. So as I understand it with like the Broncos, Russell signs a couple $1 million deal with the Steelers. Steelers couple million comes off of then that Bronco deal that he was going to have to be owed by the Broncos versus, let's say, if he had just been on the street and nobody signed him and he wasn't on an NFL roster. So there's a little bit of that again that exists within the course of these kind of deals and how they are structured up. Let's look at a couple things here on the other item I want to show you guys with this, which is a little bit of the salary cap space. So when it comes to let's look at, for instance, I want to show you guys the Rams. What was I talking about in regards to voidable years and having to pay the price? And a lot of what the Rams did is put a bunch of those big contracts together and then push the money way down the line, and the money was going to be due. It's money's not money that they're really going to save a ton on. You have a Stafford next year moving into a pretty elder age at this point in time by next season. This is 2025, by the way, not 2024, just to stipulate, okay? And he's going to this place where he's going to be kind of older with a $50.5 million cap hit. And if you look to the far right-hand column, which is the one you want to pay attention to here for just this example, I'm going to show you the Rams, that is the cap savings that you can get. So you only collectively, by moving off of Stafford, save $13.5 million with all of that dead money on top of what you're dealing with on that. So it's yes, collectively savings, but still having to sit on the $37 million of dead money in that case. And if he retires, think about what this would be with the Rams next year. If he retires, along with the fact, then you look two players down beneath that, and you have Aaron Donald, 2025, guy that has been retired, who's sitting on a $38.526 million cap hit. And you will notice to the right-hand column, he saves a grand total of $1. And I'm not kidding you, by the way, that he saves you $1 as far as cap savings, but his dead money factor is $38.5 million. So the Rams could be in a little bit of torrential potential as far as if both Stafford ends up retiring next year along with what's happened with Donald. But yes, the credit card bill does come due. They just pushed it out a long, long way. They did that long out layaway plan, that real one that's far, far, far away. But let's look at our Seattle Seahawks. That's the interesting one, of course, and I'm not going to get too caught up on the contract for this year because of the fact that they've got their money kind of spent. There's not really a lot of extra things that are to be done. The Seattle Seahawks, I think, if we want to just speak about it real quickly here on this, you can, at any time here, if they want to create some more money, they can. It's going to be restricted to just a couple of players. It is taking one of, in my opinion, Geno, DK, Draymond Jones, or Leonard Williams. Not Leonard Williams even. Just those really three guys, and maybe Julian Love if you were to put him on some kind of extension. And taking those guys and turning something from base to bonus. Not all of those guys. But maybe they would have an intention of doing some of that if they had to really create some space for this upcoming season. They really have done, for the most part, the moves that they can make, though. So there's not a lot of extra stuff they're going to be doing here. And a lot of what John's done is kind of taken a bit of the pain of the cap this year versus spreading it into next year. The Jamal Adams deal, for instance, because we can go down the line on this one and get to, I don't know where they got the cap here. Jamal listed on here. I don't know why they don't have him listed here. But Jamal is, of course, on this as a dead money guy, and so you're still having to kind of feel the pain there on that stuff just a little bit, just a wee bit on that one. But the place to look to here for me is 2025. 2025 is what I have said is really a place. First, let's look at the teams from a standpoint of let's look at the cap space first here for 2025. So first, your Seattle Seahawks don't look too great on the surface of it for 2025. We come off 2024 already kind of squeezed for cash, and right now we're with negative $600,000 as far as the books look here. So on the surface, it looks like, whoa, Nelly. Some teams got $128 million and we got $600,000 in space. What is going on? But then we get into a little bit of the details. It's the details of this. It's not what you have as far as your cap accounted for, what's on the books. It's about cap flexibility. Can I move here? Can I move there? And I'm not talking about void years here. I'm talking about an ability to, in a lot of ways, what I'm expecting them to do next year is come through and look at these top 4 or 5 deals and take a hard look at them as to whether or not that's going to be what they're going to want to roll within those deals moving forward. Be it maybe a trade, maybe an extension, but a changing of the deal where the cost is able to be lowered so that they can save collectively some more money at the end of the day. Geno moves into a place next year where you can save $13 million. You can save even more, though, when it comes to a conceptual place called the post-June 1st cut for next year. This is a thing we haven't talked about, which is another important part of this. When you release a player and you have to suffer the dead money of the hit, you do have an option of being able to do that, to then spread that out by what's called post-June 1st designating them, which is then you have the money hit 2 years. Boom, boom. Spreads out evenly, hits 2 years, but that lowers down then the dead money that you have to take on at that point. And that's where you're able to really kind of increase that flow if you want to do it from that fashion of things. But DK, I'm on 2024, by the way. Here's 2025. So 2025, Geno Smith saves you $25 million by moving off of him or trading him. You have a DK Metcalf goes into the final year of his deal. He only has, and the two places to look at a little bit is maybe that signing bonus there on the side, prorated signing bonus. You got the option bonus on there with him as well. That's the $11 million collectively. That's kind of the bonus you got left going. You have $22 million to save on him on a deal. If you were to move, you only have $7.5 million. Not even the option bonus hits on you because that hits at a certain date. So you're really on the hook for only the 7.5 on that. If you were to move that. Tyler Lockett saves $17 million. Draymond Jones, you can save $16.5 million. I'm not expecting Leonard Williams to be in the target line here, but 2 other guys, Uchenna Nwosu, $8 million to be saved there with him, and I think you can also post June 1st him to kind of double those savings. Noah Fant can have $9 million saved on his deal. So in actuality, there is quite a bit of money between that collectively. You take, from obviously DK would be, you think, hope a contract extension. We'll see where that all ends up standing out at. But, Tyler retirement makes sense. Draymond moving on makes sense. That's $33 million right there. I think Uchenna Nwosu's, even though he's probably even potentially still playing good, I don't know if he's going to be exactly a fit on this defense. We'll see on that. But that's $40 million right there. Geno then with 25. We're at $65 million. Noah Fant, $74 million. If the team wanted to do this, this wouldn't require any voidable years or the Seahawks doing a lot of crazy stuff at that point. This is if John wants to go forward and it determines we'll go this other fashion with it. So again, flexibility is set up really nice for next year. If you look at it as well, who's our major free agent that we got to worry about at this point? Certainly some of those 22 class guys are going to start after their third year, want to be looking at probably contract extensions. But we don't really have any major free agents that we look at here that are going to be also that we got things to worry about for next season, right? So also a way that maybe John can go a little bit more harder in some of his moves on the outside, not just in free agency, but trading, because of the fact that he's not going to think about the compensatory system, because I don't think there'll be much of a factor within the compensatory system next year. Because I don't think we got a lot of people really due to be free agents on that. So in actuality, the cap situation is not as bad as it might look next year. You could do just a couple of things here with some of these moves, and you'll be perfectly fine to get your order of business done. So a lot of flexibility in the moves they can make. A lot of let's determine where the team is. Is it ready to take that big step forward and start to compete, or is it a matter of now we got to still kind of keep the money good, keep everything right where it needs to be? And the good news on this is, excuse me, when you go to 2026, is that though you might look here at 2025 and go, oh my goodness, we're way down there. We got the flexibility to move around if we need to. Not the worst thing. Niners are below us at 23.8, showing a little bit of where they're at on that scenario. But when we do go to 2026, here's what we come to find. Your Seattle Seahawks are third right now with the cap space into 2026 with $204 million. So we're not in bad space. Hopefully this will not be a narrative that has to be pushed out there, and people, I think, are going to just come back here to this year, and look at it and say, oh my gosh, we only got, we're down here at the bottom right now as it stands. And then we go to next year and we're at the bottom right now as it looks. And so I think there's going to be some low-hanging fruit for some people that come out and try to say that we don't actually have space, but we do have space for next year. If you look at it with some of those moves I talked about it, you're really probably right around between the Packer, Buccaneer, Bronco range of things here in that $60 million range of where you're probably truly at as far as cash that you can go out there and spend for next year, which we're anticipating at that time's got a good chance of being really a year where you truly do try to go for it and engage, so to speak. So that's kind of the salary cap in a nutshell from my stance of it, just on trying to explain a little bit. Hopefully I was able to kind of give you guys a little bit of a not too boring breakdown of this. This has been a real common request for me, so I wanted to get this done at some point because it's been a while in the coming. Sorry, I didn't get my graphics right on this. I misdid them a little bit. But we can talk about some different structures if you guys want. I can put some different structures together and show you guys on that. I think just the key parts of this is to always consider that what you see on first view when contracts are announced is never what you're going to get. You're always going to have this is what the agent has leaked. That's what's happened here. Agents leaked, and what he wants to do is make the deal look as good as possible because he's trying to get more clients. Oh, you got that deal for that guy at that amount. I did. Yeah, but you didn't really get the amount because the guy will never see the end of that deal. Details. Just give me another client. It's like a magician's trick as much as anything else these agents pull off. It's very important when looking at these deals to really consider that. And as well, the bonus structure and how much time's left with a player on when they can be released and when they can't. You're going to try to trade DK this year. You got $23 million in dead money. You only save $1 million collectively. You're eating a lot of cap. And you got to be careful about releasing players into too much dead money. You can do it if there's just so much money to save. Sorry, one sec. The allergies are getting me. You can do it if there's enough money to save to offset the value, but of course, when you're releasing and saving that money on that player, you're having to go out there and sign another player to oftentimes replace that player. So it's not just the pure savings, it's the cost, it's the dead money that has to be incurred on the other side of it. There are some little other slight things we can talk about too. If a guy's on a franchise tag or a guy's on his last contract, he's going through the final year of a deal. You can, if you're trading with a player at times, get a team to take on a big part of that contract. We did this with Leonard Williams last year. We did this on the Jadeveon Clowney deal where we got the Texans, I believe, to pay like half of his franchise tag that year he came here in 2019. Now you're going to have to end up paying a little bit more draft capital to make that happen, but that's something that we are seeing some teams do out there, playing a little bit of a game of, money or not even player for the draft capital, almost like creating money for draft capital, where it's like, we're going to give you this extra pick, a little bit like the Lions did, I guess, with Stafford, or the Rams did to Stafford when they traded him, where, okay, we'll give a little extra because you got to eat this dead money, that kind of thing. A little bit like with Russell, a bit too, where you got to give a little bit more for that. It's a way to get extra picks for money a little bit. But let me know if you guys got any questions on this. I appreciate everybody watching today. Please do hit that like button. That was 45 minutes. Wow, sometimes time just flies. You know what I mean? My goodness. I also have hard linked, pinned, I guess that's the technical term, if you're in the industry. I have pinned at the top of the chat a link to the Hawks Nest Clips channel. We are releasing 1, 2, 3 clips a day here at times on the new channel off these live stream shows. So this is a long requested. I mean, I had on even my last live stream video, people were like, hey, this is great, but we want a summation. Hey, this is awesome. But you have something where you can kind of just wrap it up. 5 hours is not for everybody. But you can go right now and sub up to that channel, the Hawks Nest Clips channel, and I will continue to be feeding that throughout the course of this next year. It's been doing really well. You guys have been responding to it really well. So let's, please do pop over and sub on up if you get a chance over there. Thank you guys, though, for watching today. I hope everybody's having a great Wednesday evening, and your spring's going good. DJ says, yay, salary cap breakdown. What's up, man? Ran the cut. How you doing? Jeffrey Ball, welcome to the Hawks Nest as a Pro Bowler. We just did a members only and patrons only call-in show yesterday, which was great. A couple hours over there on that side of that. I'll keep and continue to be doing that about once a month. If you're a member of the channel, you can jump on in with me. And sorry, that was probably really loud. You can jump on in with me and chop it up on whatever you want to talk about. So we'll be doing that again here in, of course, in May as well, or in June as well. Nick Guzman, how you doing, man? Thomas says, I think the DK rumors are due to the NFL news being slow. I hope it is. I really do hope it is. It is something that could be very well the case where this is just being drummed up out of nothing and, teams playing games in the background and trying to leak stuff. And there's a lot of that kind of shenanigans going on between teams at times, I think. Boy, Stand Grenade, how you doing? Little Lands, got any chance to take a peek at next year's draft class? A very young class. They have a lot to prove, but I also think they have a lot of potential. I like Wagman and Aller and Dart. Not as of yet, Lethal Lance. I've been doing the sort of decompression mode because definitely you just get to that. For me, I get to this point where once I get to the draft and I've been looking at those guys so deep for that last point, there's always that sprint at the end where you're just grinding tape for hours and hours every day. I got to do a little bit of a break. You know what I mean? Keep it fresh and keep it loose. But the QBs will obviously, I think, be the first thing that I look at when we're looking at the QBs in next year's class, when any of the prospects in next year's class leave the Lance, because I do think that there's a very good chance this is the year that John makes that jump and tries to go and find that guy. So you'll see me looking at those guys. I like the names. I'll take a look. Have those names down. Wag and Aller, and I know Dart. I've looked a little bit at Dart. I haven't done enough to just kind of little glance kind of thing, but I'll be diving into these guys. And the thing with it too, I'll say with you as well, I'm more of a plus guy on these quarterback draft classes than the draft classes, period. We have the final year next year being of the COVID years, meaning that the last years of these guys getting the extra season, so being able to play 5-6 years in college. That does mean there's still going to be an inflated year next year as far as the overall number of draft picks that are entering into the class. And if you think of it, to me, reasonably, it's if you have more guys entering, you have extra guys able to enter the process, then that probably means that there's more really good players potentially to go out there and find and grab. And so that does include, I think, the quarterback class. I think people are underselling a little bit Lethal Lance, not you, but many on the final year and how much that weighs so heavily on these quarterbacks, not only in their evaluation, but as far as where they'll be determined to go. It's the thing that can push you over the top. Michael Penix had a great year, not last year, but the year before, but still wasn't enough to push people in people's minds of being a first-round guy. Comes out there and does what he does this year, first round. Bo Nix was the guy that similarly had a good year the year before. Wasn't looked at as a first-round guy, though, really. Everybody's caught up on the Auburn tape. Comes back, has a fantastic year, first-round pick. Jaden Daniels, same way. It's these guys rise up in that way, and it's the part we got to think about always, and that these are kids and they're progressing, and guys progress at their own speed. And just because one guy looks like this when he first comes onto the college scene or early on to his career is not who he'll necessarily be when it comes to the long term. So I'm interested in these guys, and I wouldn't be surprised, Lance, if we come to find that it's actually a very strong quarterback class when it's all said and done. It's to me real premature to call it this or that. DJ Ugalele, yeah, there's one of your. I've been playing in college for 9 years. 9 years? Yes. Alex says, I seriously don't think DK is leaving Seattle. I hope he retires a Seattle Seahawks. Fingers crossed. Go Hawks. Seattle all the way. I agree, Alex. I've definitely dropped a little bit of content even today. I had 2 shorts I dropped in the channel here and one on the Clips channel in regards to DK. I just want to get if I can get out there as much as I possibly can on hell to the no. This is a hell to the no. We don't want to do this. And I if kind of tried to lay out, you do this, what you're really getting collectively back, maybe your quarterback, you may think you're getting your Superman QB for your position, but it ain't going to be a Herbert, Josh Allen, Mahomes, Lamar, whatever type. It's going to be more of a kind of that second tier first round quarterback pick type that you guys are not going to like. It's going to be more of like, we got an Andy Dalton. Like, well, do you want to go and, come back to us? Like, anybody in the fan base, even the somewhat quasi, I'm open to it, but I'm not really open to it, but I'm kind of open to it, trade DK people. I don't think anybody signs up for DK for Quinn Ewers. I'll give Quinn the whole thing. I'm not throwing away from the thing I just said about all those quarterbacks and moving to their final year. Maybe he goes into Texas and he looks like Aaron Rodgers reborn this year, where all of those little flashes that have got all the other NFL evaluators super hot to trot, really does win out. But I haven't seen it so far, and based on what I've seen from Ewers so far and where he, to me, looks, and I don't know how he gets tremendously better in his progression of ability with it, but that's the kind, to me, quarterback you're kind of looking at. Maybe there's one guy that does end up rising above the rest, but it just doesn't, to me, add up or make sense for making that move for a guy that's going to be kind of a mid quarterback, which is what my big worry is we end up doing with this, is you end up trading something that's your best player for a mid quarterback. Yay. Schedule comes out next Thursday, Thomas, I believe, or next Wednesday. It's the 15th. Yeah, so it's the 15th. Sorry, Wednesday. Who's the first game? Good question. They'll probably put us in the south in 125 degrees. There you go, Seahawks. We don't have a team that can do this to us. Probably. We had a home game last year, so playing away. Boy, Lions on the road to open the season would be pretty cool. Wouldn't it? Give me the Bears week 1. I want to get Caleb in his first game. Perfect time to get him at that point. The Lions one stands out with all the good fights they've had over the last couple of years, though. Prime time Sunday night game. Isaac says, crazy stupid idea. What if every season opened with the 3 divisional opponents in the first 3 games and finished with the same in the final 3 games? What do you guys think? I'd be okay with it, Isaac. I do like having the games pushed to a little bit at the end of the year. The majority of the games pushed to the end of the year for division, because, then it's down the stretch and it's a little bit more of, it gets to be determined in the fights between the final teams in the division for it. But I can see the theory in it too, and making sure you're getting a balanced set for everybody because, he could both where you're at, maybe most your best, healthiest early on, and maybe later on you're not as healthy. And you want a healthier team to just be able to be the winning team. You want the best team at the end of the day, and maybe the better measure is to kind of balance that in the schedule. I like the end push, though, a little bit. Brian doesn't agree with me, though. He says, I hate having division games during the last month. Too much possibility of players missing due to injury. That's where I do say it does make a little bit of sense. I get it on that. That injury reasoning does make a ton of sense. I like it, Isaac. Good idea. I'm with it. Brian's with it. Isaac says, I work with a Niners fan, and he said today that Ayuk is off the trade block, but that Kittle is on it, which makes about as much sense as us trading DK. So I don't know. I guess it's not just our fan base. Yeah, well, this is the thing we come back to, which is, I think, a good subject to bring up, which is that the salary cap exists. Teams are beholden to it, and nobody is able to simply dance around the laser beams. You're going to get clipped. The Niners are in the process of, kind of getting close to looking like they're going to get clipped a little bit here as we're moving into the future. I showed you last year's, we look at the Niners, and where's that? Right here with them into 2025. Where are they at? They're at $23.8 million in bad money. They're negative, basically $24 million on their cap as it stands right now. And they're looking through that and they're like, yeah, we got George Kittle at that time where we can save $18.9 million there. Is he going to be on the roster really at that time? They don't want to give up Ayuk. And that's the thing. And I get it. I wouldn't want to give up Ayuk as well. But they're at that place now where the cost has clicked in. So you're going to have to pick somebody that you're willing to go away from now. You're going to have to, cut away one of your pillars. Is it going to be Deebo Samuel? Is it going to be Kittle? I agree with you. The Kittle one doesn't make sense to me. To me, it's the Samuel one. I think the reason they don't want to do the Deebo Samuel one, though, is because they can't get the proper value for Deebo. We'll give you a 4th-round pick for Deebo. You'd rather just try to roll the dice and see if he can bounce back off these injuries recently and just be healthy for a little bit of time, especially if we can load balance him a bit. With Kittle, he's getting older. It's a devalued position. So when you start to spend money on that position in the sport, why did Brock Bowers drop as far as he did? Because the price of the cost of a tight end at 6'7" overall. So there's that pull, but it all comes down to you can't pay everybody. And they're running into these problems with the Niners as far as somebody's got to get clipped, Somebody's got to pull the straw and take the short straw. This is all hitting them right now prior to even having to pay Brock Purdy. What happens when that comes in after next year? That dead money I just showed you on the Niners is without even Purdy getting a new contract. Purdy goes through the 3rd year of this deal in 2024. He will be in line for a new contract. Niners going to be a little bit of a struggling spot. But I get why they wouldn't want to give up Ayuk. I wouldn't want to either. He's an awesome receiver that they haven't utilized to the fullest, a little bit like DK, and he blocks great like DK. You don't want to let go of that kind of guy, especially the fact, like DK, he plays every single week. I get it from Niners' perspective, but somebody's going to have to go. He's got to go. Pickens and 2 1s and a couple of mid-round picks for DK. Man, it's as I said in the video today. Did anyone see the trade proposal Pittsburgh had? I thought it was the most stupid proposal they had. That's pretty crazy amount that they'd give up at that point if they're throwing Pickens in with 2 1s and a couple of mid-round picks. But who knows what that means? Like, again, you're going to get traded for DK now. You got to trade for the dead money Seattle has to sustain. That's that trading picks for money thing where it's like Seattle goes, okay, we're going to eat this money. You give us more picks then for the extra money we got to eat to make this deal happen. As I said last night, if we're not allowed, but as I dropped in that video today about DK on the Clips channel, if some team comes in and gives you some offer that's just insane, that's just out of Bananasville, like what? It probably is going to be hard for John to turn it down at this place and stage of where the roster's at and where the team's at, and McDonald just taking over. I imagine he would have a heavy pull to do so, but I don't think you get that haul. I don't. Even the one you mentioned there, to me, it's like you're not getting Pickens. You're probably getting the 2 firsts and a couple mids at the highest of the high. Yeah, Drunk. I could see Debo being the guy they wanted to move. I bet Drunk they wanted to probably get a second round pick from this draft and go take Malachi Corley. I don't think that they had a second round pick on the table from teams this year. Not in this draft. Not with the way the teams were valuing those second rounders. That's where now I think that they're kind of doubling back to George Kittle. And this is where we get to things being about not them doing things from a smart roster projection, thinking things that's more of like, we got to get one of these things out of here. How do we start giving up good assets? You're not going to maximize your return on it. It starts to just become about the pull and the motivation to give up the good assets. And this is where they could run into a problem. And the Niners have been here even a couple of years ago, where Eric Armstead, DeForest Buckner, you chose wrong. You picked wrong, Niners. You dropped your pan in the wrong creek. Brian's got the grill out. Let's go. Stoyan, hey B, I know a lot of fans want to trade EK. They play too much Madden. Amen. They trade for picks and get average draft players who they make into superstars with amazing coaching. Laugh out loud. Yeah, it's maybe a little bit of a segment or an outcropping of that. It's bewildered me on top of frustrated me because of that part where I come to where I say, just don't get where you have a great player who's been awesome, plays for you every week, shows up every week, complete player. Teams have to account for him. Still very young. How do we get rid of that guy? What? What'd you say? What'd you say? How do we get rid of that guy? Didn't you just hear what I said? Yeah. Best start to a career of any Seahawks receiver in our history, even outside of Largent. Okay. Didn't necessarily pull the holdout or ask for all the money last contract. Actually took a little bit less than, even his teammate like Brown did when he got paid by the Eagles. Yeah, all right. So that probably means he'll probably not ask as much necessarily as like top of the market guys might be asking for this next deal. So you could still get him on a pretty good contract next year. Whatever, man. You still want to move him? Totally. Why? It's like, roster building. Yeah. Come on. Let's do things from an intelligence standpoint, not from a, like you say, Madden kind of thing where it turns into sort of hot stove league. We can take those 2 picks and we can do that. That's why I like to try to bust it down to that Quinn Ewers thing. You come out this year, say you have a 9-10 win season, maybe you're in the playoffs, maybe you just miss. You're picking again 16-17. You want to go up there and get your quarterback. You're not getting Shadur. Shadur's going number 1 overall. Raiders got him. They want him. They're keeping him. Dion's mad. You got Ewers sitting there as pundit standing there. Quinn Ewers is going to be due to go around the top 5. We're not exactly sure as to where. Number 2 overall team doesn't need a quarterback. Number 3 overall team doesn't really need a quarterback, but they are open for business as far as trades. John goes out there, moves DK to a Chiefs team. Chiefs team gives you the 2 first, that first and a second round pick. He packages that first and second round pick and that first round pick and the overall of your first round. You move up to number 4. You move up to number 5. You have Ewers. And you kind of go to that where you're like, really? Is this the swap we want? Are we real sure on our evaluations that Ewers would be on that? Hopefully it dies down. I sure would love to have John just come out and be like, we ain't going to let you have him. Stop looking. Stop asking. Stop calling. Stop writing news reports about this. Drug says also, what do the Pats have for wide receivers? That's probably why they have so much cash money, baby. Well, they haven't paid Tua yet as well. Let's remember that. That's a big part of why they're sitting in a pretty good spot. The Dolphins. They're not great. They haven't signed Tua. They only got $3 million next year. They're not doing. They're struggling right now. I don't know. I don't see it. Yeah, they're not in great shape. Their cap is in the baddest stuff. Pats. You said Pats. Why did I look at the Dolphins? Yeah. So Patriots not spending anything on your quarterback. Big part of that. When you go to 2025 with them, their highest paid player is Matt Judon. with like a $14 million cap hit. So they're just not, they don't got a lot on their roster they're spending money on. But then that's also the downside is they don't have a lot on their roster. It's like a bit of both. Thomas says, I saw on the website that Byron Murphy will win Defensive Rookie of the Year this year. It's going to be hard for him to do it. For me, my perspective on this one, Thomas, not because he won't potentially be really good, but he's going to be, as it charts walking into the season, like the third 3-tech on the roster. It's going to be hard to crack enough snaps to get enough production to get the award. He'd have to be really good to overtake these vets that are really good to get the snaps pulled away from them, unless they're just planning on playing Draymond Jones on the edge 24/7, which I just can't imagine Draymond Jones really wants to do. I think he'd push back a little bit on that one. Be like, no, I'm not playing on the edge. I'm an inside guy. That's where I make my money. That's how I got my contract. Thomas says, plus Salk thought that trading DK would help Seattle out. Cowherd and Salk felt that Casey traded Hill and still won 2 Super Bowls, but they failed to mention they have Mahomes. Yeah, it's not a very good example to me to go to. And, you know, whenever, Thomas, you're using that GOAT example on things, it's especially when we're like, okay, we're going to go for the outlier, huh? We're going to go for the outlier that's almost impossible to duplicate. And that's the thing. It's guys like a Salk or guys like I'm not surprised Salk and Cowherd both have this outlook and take on it. Where it's again this the proverbial player you'll get, the daydreaming player that you have that you think you're going to pull in here for the returns are going to outweigh. And it's also 2 different scenarios. Like Tyreek Hill was almost going to be going into being 30 years old when he was moved. DK is 26 years old. We sign DK next year, he'll be 27. It won't be the same parameters of a time frame in signing him to that new deal. It'd be like him going through another deal, and then that would be an equivalency for a timeline on the Tyreek Hill deal where you're going, okay, we're a little worried now as he's getting into his 30s, this is not going to sustain. So that's just such a tough comparison to draw out in regards to DK. And has the Chiefs receiving core been better for it, losing Tyreek Hill? Looks to me like they've spun through a lot of different extra options. They're trying to find a replacement that can fit the mold there. They've signed guys like Marquez Valdes-Scantling, drafted Sky Moore in the 2nd round, traded Kadarius Toney, second, third rounder, that cost him. Rashid Rice, wasn't he a 2nd rounder? Now they got another 1st rounder on Xavier Worthy, you know. The carousel just keeps spinning for Kansas City, but it was great to trade Tyreek. You know, it was worked out for them, like you said, and worked out for the Mahomes factor. It didn't work out because Casey played it so brilliantly. And that's that whole flip factor for other receivers where people tell me, well, we can trade DK because we shouldn't have to pay him because you can always get great receivers in every single draft. Well, there are a lot of good receivers in every draft, but you know, these guys do get kind of overdrafted at times too as well, and it's no guarantees the guy you're going to be drafting is going to be good. Some of these guys do flame out. A lot of them do flame out. That's why just look at KC with their current situation. There's no guarantees there on finding the guys that are going to make the replacement just, it'll just work. Meanwhile, you got Lockett due to probably retire in a year. So now it's like, well, got to go find another receiver now. Is that going to be that easy to replace? Are we going to have a team ready to go and we're out there trying to have these young rookie receivers, having a championship caliber team, trying to make it work out there because we've made these moves and deals? CJ says, hey, Brandon, do you follow or monitor the NBA playoffs closely? I am a bitter man in my heart, and I do tend to be a little vindictive in my outlook of things at times where you steal my team, you rob from me, you take from me, you reach into my child's crib, and you remove the baba from her mouth. I'm going to come back at you with the power of 1,000 suns. So when it comes to them going in and taking our team, a team I followed very closely, and I love basketball. As every year kind of comes along, CJ, and I've got the opportunity to go, as this year I want to start to get into basketball and start to watch it again and monitor it again and get into it again. And, is this the time? And then I go, they still have my team. And I'm old enough to know that while a lot of time now has passed since the Sonics have left, they didn't take my team because the fan base didn't support them. They didn't take my team because we wouldn't ride with that team or love the sport or celebrate the players when they were here. They just took them because a billionaire wanted it to happen. And that, to me, just goes, when they return CJ team to Seattle, I'll watch basketball again. But I haven't so far. Your point. Long-winded response, but that's where I'm at with it. Thomas says, but I also feel, Salk trained in, but I also feel it's easier having multiple talented players rather than trading away probably your best player on the team. Smart organizations don't trade great players until later in their careers. Bingo. That's you guys always got great points, Thomas, on the pinballing on the back of what I was just talking about, being that the differences in the Tyreek deal to DK. DK up for a contract next year. He'll only be 27 years old. You sign him to a 4-year deal. There's no reason to believe that he can't still be tremendously productive at the age 27, 28, 29, 30. Do you want to sign him to another one after that? Is there more of a, this is maybe more of a conversation we can talk about at that time, but he ain't at that place in his career at this point. I think some people too forget about how young he was coming into the league, so they think about him a little bit. Isn't he 29? Or no, 26 years old. Brian says, Brandon, single player example. How would releasing Myers affect the cap space at different times before the season, say post and pre June 1st? Myers is sticky. He's very, very sticky as far as the Hawks situation goes. So this year, right now, for instance, Jason Myers sits right here, somewhere about 10th on how much he's making on the team. As far as his, which is just ridiculous. But if you were to try to, of course, do a pre-June 1st cap release on him right now, you've got $9.1 million. So you're not really saving. You've got negative money, essentially, you take on with him at this point. So that would be, $3.65 million. This is, of course, what took Jason off the board of being even a possibility on this. There's just no way it's going to happen because you want to save the money if you're going to move on from the guy. And the thing to consider is if you move on from the guy and you eat the dead money, you got to pay for a new kicker on top of that. So now it's not only what you're having as far as release from Myers, but you're paying the kicker. So you end up having, as you can see with Jason Myers, his cap hits at 5. You end up maybe paying $6 million collectively to the position just to go get his replacement. So let's go to 2025. And in 2025, he's got $6.4 million as his cap hit. But if you were to release him, you could save $2.7 million as a pre-June 1st type of situation. Now, if you wanted to save about another 1.8, I guess you could stretch that out. Almost, let's just round it up here for making it easier. If you want to get kind of about $1.5 million to $2 million extra on Jason Myers, on top of that $2.7 million you'd save next year, 2025, if you made him a post June 1st designation, you could do so at that point. So he comes out to saving you about $4 million as a post June 1st designation at that point. You are eating at that point $3.75 million. So whoever you sign still ends up taking you, let's say you go get a veteran minimum kicker at that point. Look at it like this as well. Veteran minimum kicker costs you $2 million, probably $3 million. So then you're paying $6.75 million with the dead money, even with the savings that you've had on Myers. You have $6.75 million at that point as far as what you're paying cumulatively to kickers. And if you come back over to what Myers is making, you essentially then end up spending about $300,000 more to move off from Myers. Is the guy that's replacing him that much better? The savings are not going to be that substantial. This is where we come down to we're kind of stuck with Myers for a couple of years. He's not leaving this year. He's not leaving next year. The time to look at the deal with him and when that potential maybe comes in where John drafts a kicker maybe in the 4th round in 2026. But I can't make the money work with it on moving off from him because of the fact that you got to sign another kicker and you're going to sign probably a vet unless you draft a guy. And even if you draft a guy, there's just $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 right there on top of the dead money. Someone says I'd rather have DK on this team, especially if Seattle decides to trade up next year's draft to get Ewers, Ramos, Leonard, Sanders. Yeah, if we're talking about it being a truly sensational quarterback talent that we had the opportunity to go up there and get, and that's what and I know that's where some people are at, and I'm not mad at that. I understand that thinking with it a little bit more thoroughly, but that guy's not available next year, and this stuff doesn't happen in a vacuum. We can have a pretty good idea a little bit of these quarterbacks. A quarterback's going to be that kind of talented guy. Herbert, though he had a little bit of an underwhelming year, that final year was absolutely a guy prior to the year where everybody was over the moon as far as, their outlook of him. Could we get a Burrow guy that shows up suddenly on the scene and does it? That stuff happens, man. There's all types on this as far as the kind of guys that can rise up. But on the outlook of it, on the surface of it, looking at it right now, and that's if you're making the move on DK, that's what you have to do right now is you don't have the benefit of saying, let's let the final year of a college quarterback season play out to make our determination. You're making the determination right now. Because that's the point of making this move is to eventually go, okay, that's the ammunition we'll use to move up in the draft to get our franchise quarterback. And making that call right now and having to make that call right now, hard to sit there and say, you can add it up to the fact of why it makes sense to say, yeah, let's unload our best player for this quarterback that, as I say, on the surface of how these guys look right now, and they could be a lot better with time, they look mid right now. It's more going to be in that, well, you got an Andy Dalton first-round quarterback. Well, you got a Kenny Pickett kind of first-round quarterback. Maybe being kind of functional for you on the rookie deal. But is that good enough? Not for me. Not for you too, Thomas. CJ says, my stance on DK trade crap is this. What's the point of drafting and developing talent if the few players you really, really hit on, you trade away? Beautifully put, CJ. I can't add anything else. Wonderfully put. It's absolutely the whole point. You draft these guys, you hope they'll be great. They are great. You get luck to integrate a guy that's taken the last pick in the 2nd round. He becomes that guy. You don't look to move that guy. You look to hold on to that guy. Oh, geez, I know it's not salary cap related, but do you like Buda Jones, UDFA? I feel like he's kind of a Braden Fisk. I promise you tonight I will look at him. I've been meaning to get to him. Kind of like I said on this just blue and green zone. There's just a little bit of once I get out of the draft, I get over 300 guys in by the end that I've looked at. So I just turning on tape again and starting to dial into tape and going through game after game and doing that. I'm just kind of like, okay, you got to get that little bit of that refresh break thing that goes on. But I got his name. I will go take a look at him and I'll try to get you a little bit of a look on him. I haven't had a chance though. Kind of trying to get a little bit of the Clips channel going as well on the side of this over the last couple of weeks and really get that rolling. Chiefs' first round is basically a 2nd round, and their 2nd round is basically a 3rd round. DK isn't going to be traded for that. The trade talk needs to end already. Let's go, Chris. I hope it does, man. As I said, this could really stop really quickly if John just kind of came out and said, not happening. Let's put a button on this. We're not going to do it. Stop asking. Team, stop calling us. It'd be very easy to just kind of come out and say that. I think the time's just about ready for him to be able to do that. I wouldn't always say he's got to do that at every turn, but this is one where you're like, a lot of smoke on this. Can we just kind of get the fire extinguisher out and just send this one all the way down, Haley says Kelsey, Chiefs also have Kelsey. They're paying for him, number one. They are paying a lot for Kelsey, and the Chiefs would be in a situation of, but let's take a look at him, Haley, on this, let's see where they would be. If the Chiefs today, right now, said we want DK Metcalf, could they do it? Not does Seattle want to trade him, not is Seattle going to trade for him, could Seattle do it? What's a deal for DK going to be? All right. Well, let's bring it here. Here's what this would probably come down to. You got like a 3-year extension, right? So let's do this. Boom, boom. So we got 3 years, $96 million for AJ Brown. $32 million a year is what he's going for. So, okay, DK goes for all right. So let's go with DK, 4 years, $132 million. Something like $60 million bonus. So year one. Okay. Let me show this to you. This is why Kansas City indeed could do this. And this is actually, Haley, a great thing to bring up because it's exactly a little bit in kind of baseline with what we're talking about today on the show a little bit. So, okay. AJ Brown signs a 3-year extension for $96 million, $32 million on average per year. DK goes to the Kansas City Chiefs on a trade. The Chiefs instantly sign him to a new contract extension, which is a 4-year, $132 million deal, or $32 million a season over 4 years. $60 million bonus. $60 million at the time of signing. Split $60 million into 4 years. That means you're going to get $15 million in bonus per year. Bum, 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 bum. Set the base down to $1.7 million. So this puts us at $16.7 million that the Kansas City Chiefs would need to clear as far as cap space to be able to sign DK Metcalf to a new contract extension. Can they do that? Here's our 2024 cap. Number we've got to get to, $16.7 million. So, first things first, Patrick Mahomes, $9.8 million. I put him down and I say, we're going to base the bonus you. So, boom, there's $5 million I've created right there with a base the bonus. I say, Joe Thuney, we have got no particular plan to let you go anytime soon. We're going to base the bonus you. That's $16 million. There's another $8 million. So 5, we got $14 million. So between Patrick Mahomes and Joe Thuney with a conversion of base to bonus, I've got myself 90% of the way to being able to cover that first year cost with DK Metcalf of $16.7 million. I need to just find $2.7 million if I am the Kansas City Chiefs to make that deal happen within the nature of the rest of the contracts. I think they could probably do that. Especially since there's probably a decent chance that there might be a player included in the trade as well if the Seattle wants some kind of kicker brought within that a little bit. You know, throw us George Karlaftis too. But that's where we come back to the part about this in that first year of that deal, Haley, is you can always bring down that first year of that base as low as you want, and then it just becomes the bonus on top of it. And you can always convert a base salary to a bonus. And while I don't highly recommend it as some great strategy, I will say that it is one that if you're a team that's going for it and you've been winning multiple Super Bowls and you're amidst the dynasty run that you're going through, and I'm the Kansas City Chiefs right now, do I bat an eye to convert a couple of bases to bonuses and give up a couple of first-round picks to get a talent like that to pair with Mahomes? Understanding, again, it's not the Tyreek Hill situation where I have a guy going into his 30s that I have to decide to be paid the highest receiver in the sport, but a guy that's 26 years old. I think they could probably pull it off if they wanted to do it. Randall McDaniel, I'm sorry, man, a little late on acknowledging your don't know, so my bad there, bro. But it's great to see you in the house. Hope you're doing well, and I appreciate the donation. It says, are we sure that Sanders or Ewers would be more valuable than DK and Geno Howell? Wide receiver is a valuable position. Don't trade a known commodity for an unknown. It's a great point, Randall. And to my opinion on this, the answer is no. And that's a bit of like what I say on this is it's kind of two things that sometimes I know can confuse people out there when I talk about this, where I say, well, we don't know what the quarterback class is going to be. So we got to get a bit this final year to mature and develop and see what it truly can be. But at the same point in time, when we talk about this DK trade and the specter of it potentially happening in the next month, it's not about being able to be given that year to make that determination. As I stand right now, as I look at Sanders right now, as I look at Ewers right now, would I rather have them in like that scenario you present, Randall, or the DK Geno Howell? I'll take the latter every day, twice on Sundays. And some of this comes down to a little bit, of course, my feeling that all three of those assets, as I see them for this team, and I do see them as really true assets on this team, Randall, are, I think, undervalued a little bit by the fan base generally. Not everybody, but some within the fan base really, all three of those guys don't kind of have them with outlook of the right distinction on them and what they are and what they bring to the table. So great point, man. And Randall, I share your feelings on this. I don't want to do it either as an option. And the cost to be made right now. We don't become afforded you get a year to kind of figure it out. These rumors are swirling now within it a little bit. Shades, this is a great idea for a video. I've been wondering why people don't attack the topic more often. It can be one that's a little bit into that weeds point. You get Shades sometimes where, some folks are just, salary cap. Okay, roster bonuses. I just, And then the workout bonus. Yeah, workout. That's good. No, and then you got the franchise. Oh. I think you get a little bit of the folks that just go. It's a little bit too deep for me, but I do get a lot of questions on this one, and I wanted to do it for a while. Because as well, I think that there are so many just misunderstandings in the cap, and sometimes it fuels people on what they want to see done that's really not possible to be done when the cap gets factored into it. Thank you, though, Shades. Misfit says, I'm just glad we're done discussing manufactured offseason BS like DK trade talks. I do hope it goes away. Like I say with this though, Misfit, the problem comes into play with this is that the Steelers were reportedly told that they had to wait till after June 1st to then come calling. And that means that I can only imagine that we're going to see still some stuff over this next month into the depths of the offseason, pushing some of this stuff through. And I wouldn't like to talk about it or cover it as much as I do, but part of me covering as much as I do is just to make sure like I'm on the record here of thoroughly saying this is not a good idea. This is me standing around a bunch of spelunkers, and they're like, I think we can fit in that cave crack. And I'm like, no, we can't. I think there's maybe water down there. I think we're going to get trapped. I think we just stay up here. Let's not take the risk. And they're all over there strapping up, Why are you always so worried about stuff, man? God, always so paranoid about it. Just let it go. Like, no, this is wrong. This can't happen. Haley says, Lockett's the main salary difference between our targets and theirs. Last season, it was only like $14 million difference for Kansas City's wide receiver tight end versus our wide receiver tight end, and take our group over Kansas City's all day, twice on Sunday. Amen. They just haven't had the development there, Haley. They've taken some swings here, and frankly, they've kind of taken that Packer approach to it. The Packer approach being, we won't go get the first round wide receiver. Instead, we'll go find the second, third rounders, and we'll develop those guys up. And that's what they've tried to do with the Sky Moore, the Kadarius Toney trade, the Rashee Rice selection. I guess you could kind of say they're doing a first round now with Worthy, but that's really more of a second round guy you're again doing this with. Part where I come to what might drive them eventually go for a guy, not just like DK, but a guy, period, that's a true, like, whoa. Andy Reid's got in his history understanding what it looked like when he put a guy like Donovan McNabb with a bunch of guys that were kind of just try-hard receivers versus then giving him Terrell Owens, and how that looked so much different. And may have that same kind of pull, especially if they come to find that Xavier Worthy isn't quite ready to go as far as taking on that big load. Randall McDaniel, thank you for the $5 donation. I appreciate you for that, Randall. Very kind of you. For the double dip dono. He says, check out the latest Cigar Thoughts podcast. Had this guy on who broke down positional value. draft value, etc. Really interesting. I will check it out. Absolutely, Randall. Thank you for the note on that. Cigar Thoughts does some great work out there with his podcast, motoring along and having some But I gotta give some big time props for everybody out there this off season, from your Hawk bloggers and stands, and of course Seahawks Brendan Nelson and Cigar Thoughts and Vines out there doing a great job getting some awesome guests in house. It's been great to see the local crew getting it done on that side of things. William says, thanks, Howard Schultz. Yeah, Howard kind of stung us in the gonads on that one, There's a little bit of a makeup there. I'm just saying on that one. Little Dallas Cowboy says, fast show 1,000 for show 1,000 Suns, and if you're still alive, I'm coming back for seconds. Let's go. Says Ricardo, never forget they stole Durant from Seattle. Yeah. I mean, right as we're about to get one of the great players in basketball history, and Durant was like ready-made for Seattle. He was perfect for Seattle. His personality and things that he got knocked up for being in New York, and like it would have been perfectly fine in Seattle. Would have been great to watch that career go through. I don't know if I would have enjoyed Westbrook as much. I think he would have driven me crazy at times watching him through the years. But yeah, they stole it. And it's hard for me not to be bitter about it, especially when it just came on the heels of growing up through my childhood and having nothing but an endless chain of potential franchises always leaving town. Before I'm born, we had the Seattle Pilots here. They go and become the Milwaukee Brewers. You get the Seahawks here, and you get Ken Behring chomping at the bit for like 8-9 years trying to move him to L.A. You got Jeff Smulyan buys the Mariners in the late 80s, and he just can't. He just like, let me get him to St. Petersburg. We're going to make him St. Petersburg team of Florida. Really? Yeah. Everybody just constantly trying to rip our teams from us, and then finally here comes this slick-talking, fat-ass billionaire. I'm going to try to make it work here in Seattle with the Supersonics, but if it doesn't work with the Supersonics, I'm going to take them to Oklahoma City. I think it's a really good market down there. Dude, that guy's going to take our team? Okay. Why do they all got to look like, if you look at Clay Bennett and you look at Ken Behring, maybe they're kind of the same guy. Nick says, I'll take Howell over Sanders and Ewers. Not even close. Amen, Nick. Amen. Thank you for the note, though, Randall. I'll check out that. I think I did see it come up on my deal there for recommended. So I'll take a look at that, Randall. Thank you again for that, man. Appreciate you. Greg says Hawks also have to be ready to replace Tyler at the end of the year because of money cost. And if they trade DK this year, that's 2 new wide receivers you need. And we come back to it, man. There's so many reasons why this doesn't quite add up to making a lot of sense, right? There's another point on it. Tyler's very likely to retire after this season. JSN's really a slot-only guy. So many Seahawks fans, I think, just sort of take for granted, like, oh, he's ready to go. He'll be your number 2, number 1 guy on the out. Like, I don't know if he's an outside guy as much. Maybe a few snaps in there throughout the course of the game. But it's going to be a bit of a pickle. And God forbid we walk into next year's draft and then we start hearing stuff like, this is one of the weaker years for a wide receiver class draft we've had in quite a while. Hey. Next, does anyone watch yours? He underthrew Worthy Mitchell on every pass of 20 yards. Yeah, it's every time I've turned on the tape, it's brutal. The only tape you can go to is the Alabama game from last year. And even that one, it's bubble screen, tunnel screen, drag route, throw it over to the flat, post snap to the running back. And then when he has asked to push the ball down the field, it's a bit of a struggle. Yeah, I see the same thing. That's where it comes down. It's like I take a quarterback in the first round. I don't want to be looking at his arm strength going, And then you look at that with him as well. And while he has the size, got a bit of the Spencer Rattler thing going on where the arm's like, okay, and then the mobility is not. And that's a part that's not coming forward, the mobility side of it in yours. That is what it is. TJ says, I thought for a while it would have made sense for the Sacramento Kings to move to Seattle, King County and whatnot, plus Seattle Kings rolls off the tongue fairly okay. I think they would change them to Sonics if they do move. But that was the one that was going to look like it was going to maybe happening for a while. And then suddenly I think Kevin Johnson, former Suns point guard, I think was like a mayor or something, Sacramento, and saved it there. Misfit says, never move a Seahawk team inland. It's kind of like attacking Russia in winter, right? Carr says, let's not steal from a team's small, dedicated fan base. I don't want to do that either, man. That's the thing too, is I'm not looking to be like, it happened to us, now it's going to happen to you, Turnabout's fair play. We suffered, now you suffer. Now just give us an expansion. But give me a team before you expect me to support your sport again. Don't rip my team away and then expect you'll still be watching, right? Here's some Portland Trailblazers. That's close enough to Seattle, right? No. Pretty effing far away, actually. And I don't like the Trailblazers. Chris says, no more quarterback talk right now. It hurts my noggin. Let's get to the season and see what we got in the scheme and how things fall into place before we worry about drafting something we might not need to right away. Amen, man. Amen. As just to be fair, Pete said there was no intention to trade Russell Wilson, then trade him like a week later, and didn't mean that KC could or couldn't afford it. Simply that the argument that they traded Reek and don't have a receiver now is dumb, and don't have a receiver now. Okay, that's fair enough, Haley. Yeah, it's totally fair enough. And I don't look at it just because they traded receiver. They've tried to take steps, I think, too, on that to do the fix. That's where I come back to seeing how you get to DK with it. Is it's like you go to Tariq a couple years ago, you move on to Tariq, and you go, we'll draft multiple guys in the second round. It'll be less driven by kind of one guy here in Kelsey, and then we'll have it more of kind of an even distribution. We'll get him some route runners. We'll get him guys that'll create separation. They'll develop. Kind of like I say, that Packer way, the Jordy Nelsons, and they did it with Favre too. It's just sort of that endless strewn of those sort of second, third round guys, your Randall Cobbs, Devontae Adams, and him developing along as he did. But it just that part hasn't really worked. And now with Rashee Rice looking like he's going to be fit for a pretty nice little suspension, especially with the newest incident. Sky Moore looking like a bust. Kadarius Toney not looking ready to be ready to roll. And I know Xavier Worthy, will at least find a role there, but I don't know if he'll be ready either. Does that then draw them to a place of desperation to make some kind of move? And not just even on a DK thing, but just on to a move or receiver out somewhere even else, potentially, maybe. All right, it says Rashee Rice equals KC LJ Collier. If you rearrange the letters, Brian, Rashee Rice is KJ LJ Collier. It's an anagram. Randall, thank you for the $2 donation. Appreciate you for all that support, brother. Says, give me a few reasons why John would trade DK. Oh, I got some reasons for you, man. I got some reasons. I don't agree with these reasons. I'm saying this at the top, and I think this is tough to discuss because if it does happen, people are going to be like, why did it happen? How did this happen? The first reason comes into that this would be a move about looking a year out from now. As I've thought for a while here, the Seattle Seahawks, I think Randall are running this where they're looking to 2025 as the go year. Here's the year where we hit in the ignition switch. Mike Donald's defense will be ready to roll. Our young players from that 2022 draft will be entering kind of into their subprime state of things. We're good. Here we go. But I need to create my money. And there's a substantial place of being able to create a lot of money by moving on to DK at that point. And with all of the receivers that continually are being flexed through drafts over the past couple of years, and I think the past two drafts, there's a very strong argument to say the strongest positional groups over the past two drafts, definitely this year. I don't know, maybe not last year, maybe, but it's very close to it's being the wide receiver position. So John goes, I can get that wide receiver somewhere else at a cheaper place, go into the draft, get a good functional guy, get a guy ready day one that can go out there and play. Because a lot of these guys are coming out and showing themselves to be good to go as far as you're not necessarily having to waiting on a lot of development time. Depends on the player, of course. I'm speaking more to narratives here, John, of course, not to what really reality is. We know with a lot of these guys that I just spoke about the Chiefs, for instance, that you can absolutely miss. Missing is a direct possibility. But you're a year out from having to make a decision on this one way or the other. He either is going to be traded or you're going to need to assign him to a contract extension. I don't think that they just have DK go through his final year, nor do I think DK is going to want to go through his final year without getting a contract extension at that point. That's going to push things along just in itself. It could be too, John doesn't want to pay receivers and he'd like to offload the assets in a different place, John, rather than the DK contract is going to be substantial. You're going to probably pay him $32, $33 million per year. From John's perspective, maybe he doesn't want to pay a non-quarterback player that amount of money. That's too much at that point. They may feel like, even though he's been very, very healthy, that he's probably due for some major injury at some point, and that on the next deal, their doctors have told them maybe, but they're looking like, we don't know if he'll make it the whole another deal. That maybe you guys have gotten out the good part of this, of what there is to get the good part of it. We don't have a lot of faith that that's going to be the way that plays. That could be another factor into it. He gets blown away by the offer, Randall. He gets given an offer that's just, it's the Godfather. Make him an offer. You tell him, John, we're going to make him an offer. An offer we can refuse. An offer he will have to say yes to. And if he doesn't say yes, we'll send John Stigliano to go talk to him. I'm a very reasonable man. I'm a very, very reasonable man. Here is your offer, John Schneider. So what if he gets blown away with that offer? I like going to the Chiefs one because to me, this is the one where I could see how this could kind of play out. You got Chiefs a couple years ago. Tyreek Hill's going to be 30 years old. We don't want to give him that market-setting deal for the receiver position. Let's max out on the assets we can get back. We get the assets back. The plan is to go the Packer way at the wide receiver realm of it. Let's make multiple seconds and a third rounder and get multiple receivers in here. Let's get a Marquez Valdez-Scantling. We'll get the speedster in addition to it to package around those guys. Oh, hell, our young guys haven't developed and worked. This isn't working. Doom, 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 doom. Strategy starts to change. Direction and approach starts to change. What do we do? Way to find this out. We're in the middle of our Super Bowl run. We just won a Super Bowl, but this was one of the glaring needs on our team and one of the things that almost held us back from winning that Super Bowl. We can't let that happen again. Hey, let's throw a freaking king's ransom at John Schneider to get DK. That's another part that could push him on this, Randall. And when you are in a place as a last point on this as a coach taking over and he's coming in with his whole new scheme and system and all that stuff, everybody's a little bit in the crosshairs as a potential target, I think, as being maybe somebody that could be offloaded at that point. Even the great guys. It is a bit of the nature of the beast when it comes to just new regimes taking over. And that's what worries me about this. That's why I do talk about this a little bit. It's like there are these reasons within it that could drive a guy like John to go make this choice. And that's why I'm railing against it so hard, is I get that there's some logic and reason to doing it, but it just still doesn't make it smart overall. And it still absolutely doesn't end up making it wise in the grand scheme of things. Chris says that Clay Bennett impersonation's dead on. Laugh out loud. Greg says, I never got the Leggett hype. I didn't either. Like everybody goes, he's DK. It's like, he's 6'1". The arms aren't real long. He doesn't have the wingspan. He tested really well, but it's the DK comp on a much, much smaller build. You're not even getting kind of an AJ Brown at that point. Just that's not the same kind of player. Chris says, I take Ward over yours. I might as well in the grand scope of things, actually, Chris. Yeah, I might as well. He certainly moves better. Probably has a better arm. Yours maybe has more size. Radu Turkan. What's up, Radu? Good to see you in the house, man. Thank you for the $5 donation. I appreciate you for that. Cooper Kupp was a wide receiver one for a good time and was dominant as a slot. So I think JSN is the future. No doubt about it. Cooper Kupp definitely was the driver of that Rams offense to your point of that. But as well, I would say Radu, though he was the number one receiver, and I'm not pushing back to say it was not, he was by a wide margin. He was the number one wide receiver. Still at that time, there was a heavy amount of resources that was being carved up by the Rams for the other wide receiver positions. You still had Robert Woods, and he was I think a former second-round pick, and they gave him a big contract. You had Brandon Cooks that they gave up, I think, a first-round pick to go get and have there at the same time as you were running through on that. It wasn't a matter of the Rams saying, well, we got our slot, that's our number one guy, the other positions don't matter. And it's more about that with this, that he can become that guy and that number one featured guy in the offense to me, Radu, but you're still then going to have a need for guys that maybe don't have to be dominant on the outside, but have to be at least somewhat of difference makers on the outside. We can't just go for kind of try hard overachiever types out there and go, okay, well, Jake Bobo will be one, this other guy will be one, then we're good. That won't be enough. And that's the thing with this is like we can have in the future an outlook here where DK can get his money. He can be the number one guy. JSN can slide in and be that number two from a slot position. And then you can go figure it out with the other number two guy. But if you find yourself down Lockett, down DK, JSN's here, the pathway to getting those other guys that fit in as true X's and Z's in this receiving core becomes a little bit more foggy. But you're absolutely right. JSN can absolutely slide into a place of becoming more of a Amon St. Brown type into this offense as far as the receiving core, and to being a number one, but being a number one from the slot. Part of why I didn't have a problem with taking him as a slot guy in the first round, from my perspective there, Radu, is that those guys can be hyper, ultra productive players now in this day and age. Brian says Ward has shown he's better than yours. We got Ward getting some love. I'm not the only one. Gino Smith in the house. What's up, Gino? He says, I'm heading over to visit WWU tomorrow. Well, awesome, man. When are we going to get you on the Hawks Nest, Gino Smith? When am I going to get you over here? I know you put a tweet out this week, said, I'm going to take my ball and go home. I ain't talking to Mo. You can talk to Hawks Nest, though, right? You know you're in a safe place here. You know you're good. But have a good one out there at WWU. Get it. Get it, man. Do a little workout. Randall, thank you for another $5 donation, Randall. I appreciate you for that. All teams have the same amount of money to work with. Why are teams with cash on hand able to be more aggressive? Saw it with the Rams. They manipulate the bonus. Well, we didn't really talk about it as much, but it comes down to sometimes the guarantees. And I don't like to factor in and talk about too much the guarantees with the cap because it can really start to confuse things a little bit. But when we do show Randall, for instance, what the Rams did and what the Niners are doing a little bit right now in order to create their space is they indeed robbed from the future. They are paying the price. When you look at this, Randall, here's your team in 2025 for the Rams. This is with Aaron Donald now, a year retired in the books. He's sitting on his couch, right? He's got the no more six pack. It's more like a spare tire. He's hanging out on that couch. He's chilling, And so we come to this in 2025, Randall. You're still going to be paying Aaron Donald. They gave him, remember, that contract extension a couple of years ago, and it was kind of recent after they'd already given him a contract extension, and they pushed all the money out. You got Matt Stafford next year moving into a year where he's going to be getting pretty old next year, $50.5 million cap hit, because you got him on that extra contract extension. You move the money out. You've got Cooper Kupp set for next year at that $30 million contract, that cap hit there, Randall. So there's two things here. First, look to 2025. They're still kind of paying that price from those seasons of past. That championship run with Donald is still being paid as a price with him a year removed in retirement and to the tune of almost $40 million. Look at that number right there, Randall, that $38.526 million. They save only $1 collectively, but they have $38.5 million of dead money. And this is 2025. This isn't this year, Randall. So this is 2025 I'm talking here. And that's where, to me, they had to pay the price, number one, when you see it here. Then you go, okay, well, yeah, they're paying the price here. But then remember, too, with this, Randall, they had $57 million of dead money on their books this past year. Also from them cleaning house last year and turning it over. They made the playoffs, but $57 million was off of their books last year that they couldn't spend. because of the championship run and charging the card in the future and all of that. So there is a way to manipulate this, Randall, but it's not anything that's being done where guys are like capologists that are just being so brilliant in their approach. The price is the price. The cost is the cost. You're going to pay a guy this amount of money. You've got to then pay that price off your cap somewhere at some point. And if you push it to the future, that's all well and good, but you're going to have to then make sure that you've got your cap that year into a healthy state to be able to sustain that dead money hit. And when you get down to it, it's just not a really good way of having to do business where you're every year going into it, Randall, going, well, we got not as much money as we should have. Like it's $255 million as far as the cap money we have to spend, but we only have $220 million to spend because we got all this dead money from guys we had to release that aren't good anymore, or they're overpaid. And so it's the price still comes in. There is the guarantees you can give players where you can offset a little bit of stuff, right, Randall, where, okay, you have your base, your bonus, and you have your player go, okay, well, let me take it and let me do it like this even. Let me show you, Randall, a little bit of one of our scenarios here. So we have a scenario like this where you have a 4-year contract, 4-year deal, $80 million, $30 million bonus, right? But the player's better than this. Let's say he's a $100 million guy. And so, he's going, all right, I kind of like those numbers. I think I should be worth a little bit more, but I like playing for your team. We need to come to a compromise here, though. You need to come up a little bit more. We need to find a way to get me more, money here. I don't want to get to year 3 and you can move off of me. So the team says, okay, well, we got that. What we can do then is year 3, what we're going to do is we're going to guarantee that $15 million base. I'm not going to turn the base into bonus, but what that is that year 3, you were getting that base salary come hell or high water, whether you are here or whether you are not. And that's where you can get to some manipulations at that point where that team then is able to kind of bury the money on the books because that base basically is like a bonus, but it's not attributed like a signing bonus because it doesn't come in until year 3 of the cap, until 3 of the contract. And so this is where teams can kind of manipulate that a little bit, Randall, in order to push it out. But again, we still come down to the part where that $15 million base hits that year. And then what occurs at that point? They got to have that. They need to make sure that they're not getting that out from that $50 million base. They can't release that player and save what they maybe could have a little bit. No, now you're on the hook for that number. That's on the hook for the books at that point. And that can leave you in a place now, Randall, like the Rams kind of find themselves in here, where if you've guaranteed the deal, it's not even base, but it's like just the guarantees you put for this season, and the player retires, unless you're going to come back after that player, which teams really rarely do. Now you're just sort of sitting on the books like, with Brady or Aaron Donald. Like the Bucs had this with Brady, of course, and the Rams are having this with Donald, even moving into next year. You're just kind of stuck at that point. So it still is a risk. There is not a way to get around it. The cost does come due. The Saints doing this every year, Randall, is one where they do it every year, but they pay the price every year. They're hampered by what they can do in free agency. They're hampered by contracts they can spend. They lose guys like Marcus Williams to the Ravens because they don't have the money to re-sign this really good safety, even though they like him a lot. They're cap strapped, cash strapped in that way every single season. And it all comes down to because they never eat that dead money. That's the thing with the Saints, Randall, is 2 years ago we ate the $50 million in the Russell year. We bled the bat out, like the old days where they used to bleed people out in order to get the virus out of them. We got to bleed them a little bit. They'll be fine after that. Like we did our bleed. We got our 50 out. The Rams last year, $57 million. Got it kind of for the most part out of their system. They weren't anticipating maybe Donald retiring as early. Got most of it out of the system. If not for Donald's retirement, it completely would be out of their system for even moving into next year. But the Saints don't do that. They've never have taken the suffering. They keep kind of like, they made the deal with the devil and every day they're like, just another year, man. Just give me one more year and then we'll go down to hell and then you can do all the torment and the punishment and all that good stuff. Just give me 1 year though. Like one more, just another year. Okay, one more year this time. No, really, just one more. Eventually the bill's coming due. Eventually you're going to have to go down to the dungeons. And out comes Pinhead, Welcome, New Orleans Saints. We've been waiting for you. But thank you for the $5, man. Appreciate you on that. You're awesome, Randall. Space says, what's your opinion on Sam Howell, Geno? I like them both. I think Sam Howell, I'm much higher on him than many people are. I think he's got true upside to his game. And I think Geno has played really well the past 2 years. And a little bit like I was commenting on my Clips channel there today on the Geno video I dropped, I think that he's a guy that may not have, he is a guy that's peaked, but he's a guy that we can better mine more of the peak. You know, there's more he can do if we give him a better supporting cast, a better supporting system, a defense that doesn't live on the football field. So I think, Gino, you'd agree with that. He says, Greg says, Kupp only became number one wide receiver slot when Rams got Stafford. His production went up a bit when Stafford came there. He was still playing pretty good for them and still a pretty meaningful target for Goff. But definitely went to another level when Stafford kind of got there. He just says, which Hawks game this season would you like to see slotted prime time? I'd love to see a Lions opening week, Sunday night football in Detroit. I think that'd be cool after the last couple of years and some of the games that we played with them. The Packers prime time at home. I mean, how many cool games have we had prime time with them in the last 10 years? Which that could be kind of interesting, I think. The Dolphins at home could be fun too. Dolphins or Bills at home. The away games are kind of whatever. The only worry I have with the away games is we have 5 potential 10 a.m. games with the Falcons, Jets, Lions, Patriots, and Bears. So hopefully a couple of those are able to be prime time, or we're going to be in a lot of early morning games next year, potentially with the schedule release. This is how much better is Stafford compared to Geno? Not much. Yeah, I don't think a wide margin. Stafford's a really good player, and I think he's been very impressive coming to the Rams. He certainly is up to himself in my eyes versus what I thought he was with Detroit. But there's not a wide gulf, I don't think, between the two. Carlos says Stafford can ball out only 3 to 4 times a year. The rest of the year, he's hobbled and playing 50%. He does get beat up a lot, yeah. He does indeed. He does. He says hit rate better than quarterback for a good wide receiver, but getting DK level wide receiver in the draft, there's like 5 in the league at this level. Rare as F. Yeah. Hard to find. True. I agree. There's a little bit better hit rate on those receivers for sure. Quarterback's still kind of a hard position to kind of figure out for these experts. Randall, thank you for the $2 donation. I appreciate you for that. Very kind of you. It says Creed Humphrey and a first for DK. Jimmy Deal backward. I wouldn't do it. No, I wouldn't do it. And I do enjoy Creed Humphrey, but even more transitioning to a spread scheme, the necessity for the mobile based stuff with Creed would be even more so now than ever. And where he's done some of that at a decent level to a degree from Kansas City, I think the requirement's a bit too much for his not lack, but just he's not really a great mover. And then you're going to have to pay him a contract extension in addition. So it becomes like, I couldn't do it. No. If Creed was maybe a little bit more of the mobile guy, then maybe we could talk. I just don't. Yeah, and he's going to want to be paid good money. He's been good since day one, so he's going to want to be paid in top market center money, Randall. I like where you're thinking, though, there. I kind of like that's creative. Ricardo says, I would stick with Geno over some of these highly rated quarterbacks of the 2025 class. I guess One of them might surprise, but I'm not confident about that. Geno Smith says what Ricardo said. I'll say what Geno Smith said about Ricardo. I agree with it. It's where I'm going to and it'd be cool if this was the real Geno in the house, but it'd be really fun and awesome to watch Geno go out this year and have his best year of the past 3 years. 4,600 yards, 36 touchdowns, gets us in the playoffs, makes some noise in the playoffs, and really show these doubters what he's capable of doing with a little bit of stuff working with a little bit of wind at his back rather than in his face constantly, or more in his face than at his back. Let's put it that way. And if that happens, it's a great thing for the Seahawks and the organization if he can solidify himself in that stage of things. Hal will be a very capable guy as a backup who can grow behind Geno, and Geno can show him some things for sure that he needs to learn in his game. So I hope it goes that way. That'd be wonderful to see. Do need an interview though, Geno. You need that interview, man. Come on. Give you an X. Come on. Randall McDaniel, thank you for the $5 donation, Randall. You are an awesome man. Appreciate all the support you've dropped all the time, brother. You're amazing. He says to pay for the future, like the Rams, you must have the money on hand and placed in the escrow, right? Teams with cash have the benefit. Raiders need to take a loan. There is the part of that, yes. That you have to put all of, I believe I think it's all guaranteed money's got to be put into escrow on the time of the signing, even if it's not all being given to the player. And this can cause problems for teams that are cash strapped, Randall. Yeah, this can be a problem for some of those teams that don't have the owner that's sitting on the surplus that can pull that off in the moment to do it. So it's the place where the richer owners can rule the roost a little bit like this, Randall. It's why Packers don't tend to be a team that's super hyper in that realm of things too, right? The Steelers don't tend to be that type of team that spends that kind of money as well. Because though teams are pulling a huge profit every year, there is a big cost to the revenue they're making. And it still doesn't leave you in a place where you can just, you spend a $200 million contract, come up with $150 million. You're just like, whoo, here's 150 right out of my pocket. I got that just under the couch cushions. So that is a little bit of it. And as you mentioned with the Rams too, Randall, that is one of your richer owners in all of the NFL. And so he's in a position of, certainly that doesn't factor, problem to him. And when it comes to those guarantees where you have to come up with that escrow, not a problem for him. Player gets solidified, Randall, as to him feeling like, okay, the team can't just cut me for nothing. I've got that guarantee of the money that's so hard to find in the NFL. It's where you can really satiate what they're looking for and wanting, while at the same time being able to create some extra flexibility to your cap situation. But you are right. The money on the front end is another part of this. Putting that in escrow, that has to be something a team is able to do. And there are those teams where it's like, it's kind of rough for them to pull it off. Raiders especially they just never seem to have any money, Randall. One could make the argument maybe that's an indicator that maybe they should probably sell the franchise when you're that stuck, but we know Davis won't move that team. I appreciate it though, man. Thank you for the donation. I forgot about that with the escrow thing, by the way. Totally spaced on that part. Like says, I hope our 10 a.m. curse doesn't come back. Oh, it's coming back with a vengeance. There is only a vengeance now. But right at the bottom of the schedule there, Patriots, Bears, Lions, Jets, Falcons, all 10 a.m. We need like 2 of those to be a prime time and 1 of those to be a 1 in the afternooner. We need 1 of those to be a nooner. Greg says, Brandon, before Cooper Kupp had only 1,000-yard season, but got Stafford in his career and immediately jumped to 1,900 yards. Yeah, no, I mean, I will definitely say Cooper Kupp got taken to another level with Stafford there. I'm not pushing, back at that. He had the one thing is with that is he comes in and he has the 889 yards receiving in his rookie year. If I'm not mistaken, 2018, I think he has the torn ACL. And So, he then comes back 2019 off the torn ACL, 94 catches, 1,161 yards. It's might have been 22. I can't remember which one it was. Comes back in 2020 and he's got 92 catches, 974 yards. So he wasn't putting up 1,900 yards to your point, and Stafford took him to the huge, great level of things. No doubt about that. No doubt about that. But it was also not like he was a, 50 catch guy at 400 yards. And here's, he was right around that 1,000-yard mark every year, 90 plus catches every year, had the one torn ACL year that kind of robbed him and removed him a little bit, high ankle sprain, pretty much was. You got 1 year that was clipped though, but definitely a great quarterback and take a really good receiver up to that next level. That's for sure. David Gay says Creed's due for a contract next year and centers don't win you games. Yeah, that's the thing that I have a hard time doing that deal for. Is I'd go, well, I got to give up DK and then I got to pay the guy to, yeah. And again, I do remember with Creed, not a great athlete, and we have to have guys that can move for the position. It is a requirement right now. And so you'd be kind of taking a guy, Creed's a really good player, but then starting to force him to do things that aren't necessarily what he's comfortable doing. Flyzone says we have a hard schedule. Only easy game we have is Denver. At home we have the schedule at home's hard. On the road it's a little easier. Chris says, what if Atlanta was our first game next season and Penix gets the start if Cousins can't go? We did have Atlanta as the opening game of the season in 2019, Chris. So the NFL's definitely scheduled that before. And that would be, I guess, the possibility if Cousins couldn't go is that Penix would be your day one starter out there. That'd be pretty interesting. That'd be crazy. New head coach, too. I would like to have any of these quarterbacks. Comes to, if we got to play Penix or Drake May, Caleb Williams, we're going to get a couple of these rookies that we're going to face. Vikings, we'll probably see McCarthy. We're going to get all the rooks. I'd love to face all those guys as early in the season as absolutely possible before they figured anything out. Fly zone, our offensive line's bad. I don't like Laken Tomlinson or Anthony Bradford playing left guard. Certainly I don't want to run with Laken Tomlinson 24/7 either. Their fly zone. I think Bradford's pretty well set as a right guard at this point. He's got the athleticism and work there, but he's just not good enough as a pass protector to work as a left guard. So he might be able to settle in as a right guard over there, fly zone. He had some moments this year in games. He has a long way to go, and remember with him, he only started like 16, 17 games in college before he came out. So he just needed more experience, young guy, but definitely very talented and very to the athletic model of things. Bradford fits fits perfectly, whereas Tomlinson does not. He's not a fit from the athletic standpoint. And I do think Christian Haynes' fly zone does fit to becoming your left guard. Greg says, Brandon before Stafford. Oh, sorry. I read that already. Regardless, left guard still an issue. Can't believe we didn't take McCormick or someone who is a natural starter at left guard. Definitely would like it to be better, man. I do have a feeling Haynes is going to fit just fine over there. But, if he doesn't, it's definitely going to be a trouble town spot for us moving into the future. I won't deny that. Chris says Raiders could be getting some Brady money soon. Maybe a Davis haircut. Wouldn't it be funny if the second Brady starts to become a full-time owner, Mark Davis then starts to have actually a haircut that doesn't look like an Amish farmer from 1930? That'd be hilarious. Or he instead copies Brady's haircut. He starts rocking. It's like we're brothers. We're brothers, really, owners and brothers. Brothers in ownership. Is this my twin? Chris says we need two rookies. We have two rookies in Haynes and Lumea could be left guard. Either it's a possibility there. We'll see how it all fleshes out. I think Haynes is going to be the guy though. I look at it and I go, it's likely to be Haynes when it's all said and done. Just makes too much sense for him to move over there. It's too much of a pure smart fit. Robin says, how about you stop blaming Geno for losses? There was 10 other guys and off 11 guys in last year. Robin, are you talking to me? I wasn't blaming Geno. I got love for Geno. Robin, you'll have to maybe expand a little on who you might have been talking to there. Offense, 11 guys on defense. Yeah, I definitely wasn't blaming Geno for the losses last year. Don't think I was saying that. Haley says the problem is that you can name like 8 teams who have failed to find a number one targets across the NFL. Giants, Chargers, Titans, Jags, Cards, Ravens. Till last year. And kind of with that too, Haley. We'll see on Zay Flowers really on that with the overall with it. Raider, lots of teams try for a true number one. Yeah. Raiders eventually had to, of course, pay for Devontae Adams, to get him there, where the price ends up being a lot. You're not getting it for, kind of cheap. But those are great teams to mention on that. And yeah, there's a lot of talented guys that come through every year, but there's also a lot of guys that miss within the really talented guys. And the hit rate's better, but there's just more pure guys coming out and helping that hit rate. So it becomes less of the sample size of what you get from the quarterback position at times of the number of guys taken every year in the draft. But that's a great reference to those teams and how, hard it is sometimes to find that guy. Jaguars case, they get Calvin Ridley. And yeah, that didn't work. Let him go. Cardinals got DeAndre Hopkins and let DeAndre Hopkins go, and Rondell Moores and first-round picks for Hollywood Browns. Still trying to find it this year here with Marvin. Giants last year took that kid out of Tennessee who's just he's not making it happen. It's definitely not a guy that looks like it's going to work. Wan'Dale Robinson too, and they're hoping it can be the slot there, and I don't know if he's going to be able to factor in that role of it. Yeah, it's easier said than done. Grace says, Brandon wasn't saying Cooper Kupp was bad before. Stafford just saying he went to a different level and now is seen as this great wide receiver now. Oh, okay. I wasn't trying. I'm sorry I misunderstood. Sometimes I know it's hard on the character count, Greg, to always distinguish exactly what's being said. But no, it's a completely great, fair point. I think it's as well just there's a kind of a teaching spot within it on that of looking at these receivers and understanding the receivers of what they can be when given them the quarterback that can really take advantage of their talents, and watching how they can go to that next level once it's paired with the right QB. Part of what bothers me at times with certain franchises that will have a really good quarterback, but like have this blind spot when it comes to getting him those true pass catchers that can allow them to be electrifying. The Packers, of course, the real main example of this, where they just have some weird, we don't want that number one. There's the famous story, of course, of them turning down the opportunity to trade for Randy Moss when they had Brett Favre there. Years of having Aaron there where, look, they had some good receivers that rolled through. It's not that. Obviously, Devontae Adams was awesome, and Jordy Nelson was really good, and Randall Cobb, but never really going all the way with it. Never really taking it to, full-on funky town. And what you get when you do that, which I think there's a argument to be made, is like that's where you can really make things dynamic for you offensively when you can put those factors together like that. We were talking earlier in the stream a bit, Greg, about the combination of Donovan McNabb and Terrell Owens. And I know Terrell ended up, as he had tended to do at times in his career, burned his share of bridges and pissed his share of people off on that situation. But before that happened, you got to see a guy in Donovan who for years had, we had Pinkston. He had Hank Baskett. There was the Hollywood. He had his own Hollywood guy, right? Was there with a nickname of Hollywood as well? Yeah, there was just receivers were just kind of they were okay. And you got Terrell, and then you got to see what happened when you put Donovan there with Terrell and what he could really do. There's something to that in there, Greg. Fly zones, I think Terrell Dodson's going to be really good in Mike McDonald's scheme. I do as well, fly zone. He was fun to watch on the tape out there with the Bills when we got him. Yeah, Matt Stafford will probably retire pretty soon. Brian says, S, why didn't I get the notification? Brian, it was probably my fault. I was a little late on setting up the stream today. I was trying to get some other stuff done throughout the day, and I just got late in the day, and I was like, oh, man, I didn't get this put together, but at the 25th hour. So that's kind of my bad, not yours. It's probably not a notification problem. Good to see you in the house, though. Guess I'll have to watch the replay. I wanted B's take on this, to get B's take on the salary cap. I go pretty thoroughly at the top too, Brian. We spent a good 50 minutes up on the rip, just trying to go through each spot. Even still, I can still, as we're talking about it afterwards, there's still some things I didn't quite get into as much on it, but we'll be going for a little while still here, longer today. So if you got any questions specifically, I'm happy to answer on them. Greg says, if Geno was better than Stafford, Hawks would have won that game against the Niners in the playoffs. I don't know, Greg, on that. Geno couldn't play defense that day. You had the lead at halftime, scoring, I think, on every possession, but the Niners had scored on every possession too. Yeah, that day, I don't think Stafford does that now. I mean, we've seen Stafford with Detroit when the whole thing is on his back to do everything essentially to make something happen, including playing through a bad defense. He wasn't able to do it. You know, he certainly is a great pairing with McVay, and he had a magical run on that Super Bowl run at the end of the year, but he also benefits from having good talent and good help around him, including what's been a very good defense for him on the other side of it. So it's, you know, I don't think he's that good that he would be able to ride into that game and have won that. That's hard to see for me. Hollywood Henderson. There we go. Brings back memories. Yeah, he had like one catch in his career, but that was like the big catch everyone remembers him for, I think. Like the one where McFadden's running around all over hell and then throws it. But they got by with some lesser receivers there for quite a bit of time. I just always remember every time I'm playing them going, who did they got out there? What's this? Damn, what? Who? And then he kind of at the end with Reed there in Philly, he started to go a little bit harder with it. And he started to draft Jeremy Maclin in the first and Deshaun Jackson. And that's why it's kind of interesting to watch what he's doing with the Chiefs. That's a guy that's got good 30 years of kind of going through this stuff a bit with really good quarterbacks and how to properly set them up with the right receivers out on the outside. He's got a certain wizenedness to it. Savvy says, did you talk about the NBA player that said it's easier for basketball players to play football in the NFL? We all saw DK win MVP in the celebrity basketball game. Yeah, it's and then it's Austin Rivers saying that. Just, okay, that adds up. It's a ridiculous statement. It really is a ridiculous statement. Why don't we see 6'10" guys out on the football field? Why don't we see 6'9" guys on the football field? Because they all go play basketball? No. And the thing that people, I think, and this is something that it gets lost on a lot of even the average fan at times, I think, in the NFL, save the geese, is the toughness of these players. Football is the toughest sport there is out there. Maybe you can go to rugby or something, but rugby isn't tougher. The toughest sport you're going to find out there, and how hard you've got to train your body and prepare your body to what you got to go through on game day. And these basketball players that are talking about the fact that they would do this, and like him there, he's not, I guarantee you, thinking at all about the pain element and dealing with that. Big part of getting the NFL is your ability to have huge amounts of pain tolerance because you're going to be hurt. You are going to be injured. There ain't no flopping in the NFL. The referee's likely to laugh at you in the NFL. Officials are likely to laugh at you in the NFL if you flop. I'm not going to throw a flag for it, really. There's some flopping, but the toughness of these guys and what it takes, the physicality of it, it's a whole different level, especially the NBA now with its lack of physicality. He was out of pocket on it. He was wrong. It's not the case. Just because you're tall and you can move well wouldn't make you a great football player. It helps, but you could be a guy built like that, and the first time a guy hits you, you turn into Mr. Glass, and you say, "Ow, that really hurt. I don't like that." That's the thing that they're not factoring into. When you get hit for the first time and a guy lights you up, you're going to walk over the sideline and go, "It hurts that much? I thought the pads protect you." No, they don't. No, they don't. Not to that degree. So they may have the size, athleticism, speed, and length and stuff, but when it comes to a guy hitting you in the chops and being able to get back up and go, "Okay, I could just shake that off. No problem. I'll do that again the next play over and the next play over and the next play over." It takes a little bit of a special mentality to be able to do that. Seahawks gave me Mike McDonald called Murphy out of shape. It's not unusual at this point in time, Seahawks gaming, for a guy to come in and not be necessarily in the greatest of shape out the gate here. Would you like him to be muscled out and purely going? Yeah. As Mike said a bit about this, though, some of it is I can go out there and work out and try to work out hard, but I can't replicate practice. That's why practice is so important, and preparation is so important, and training camp is so important, and getting all of your reps in is so important, because there's no way to fake it in a weight room. The other thing is the kid hasn't played for a long period of time and has had to go through a lot of different things, Seahawks gaming, like visits to different organizations throughout the draft process, training specifically for draft drills. Is training for draft drills training to play in the football field? No, it's kind of its own separate thing, isn't it? So it makes sense. It's not a horrible thing. He'll be fine long term in that. Prezon says, "What do you think? What player do you think takes a step back next year?" Great question. Who takes a step back next year? Hard question to answer. Everybody's got mostly press on a more of an upwards, an arrow up kind of factor to them than an arrow down. Perhaps I'd go to Jaron Reed, getting into his early 30s now and played a lot of football, and especially after last year, as much use and abuse as they put on him, maybe he's in for a bit of a year where it's going to be a bit of a struggle for him. Health factors in maybe a bit, maybe just the age, wear and tear kind of comes into a little bit. We got a lot of new guys on the defense. Kind of hard to select them on that. And you have so many young guys on this team, I'd say, Prezon, that really the outlook would be more for guys to be taking steps forward. I don't think Bradford goes back. I don't think a Cam Young's going back from what he was. I don't think a Boye Mafe is going back from what he was. Hall has nowhere to go but up from the year that he had. So if you went just kind of player by player on guys that have played here, aren't the new guys coming in like Rashawn Jenkins or Dotson or Baker, most guys to me you're looking at them with an upward trend. Then you would be looking at them with a bit of a downward. Laken Tomlinson is certainly a guy I don't have a lot of faith in as far as if he's going to be playing 17 games for us. I'd be going, well, we're holding on for dear life for that position. But I don't have a lot of other guys that come to mind taking that kind of taking that step back. Brian says, B, thanks for the breakdown. See you next time. Go Hawks. Go Hawks, Brian. I appreciate you, man. Play zone. I'm excited to see Leonard Williams and Byron Murphy too. I hope Draymond Jones becomes good one day. Draymond's good, man. Remember Fly Zone with Draymond Jones? He had to be the good soldier last year, and halfway into the year, you didn't have the edges that could hold up in the run game, and so you took him and moved him out of position to the edges, not because he was bad inside, but because of the necessity to get hard edges who could who could help out in the run game, because you were like a league worst team in that part of things. So once you move him back to inside full time, I think we'll see if that's the plan. I think he becomes a lot more productive for you within there. There's a reason they gave him that money they gave him. There's a reason he's the highest paid free agent contract we've ever handed out. Chris says taller guys just have more real estate to hit. That's right. The bigger they are, the harder they fall. Ryan E says pads don't help at the speed the program is played at. They don't. The collisions have become too violent with guys moving too fast, too strong, too explosive. And you give me a basketball player in the field that's weighing 170 pounds, and he gets jacked up by a linebacker at 235 running a 4.5 full speed. Again, you might move great. You might be fast as hell. You might jump through the roof. Can you take that hit? Can you get back up and just try to force air back into your lungs as the wind's been knocked out of you? It's one of those. It's a big part of the game of football. It ain't just the guy with the ball getting tackled. It's everybody taking those hits out there, and not everybody is built to handle that. A lot of guys put together and go on a basketball court, and they can run and get super sweaty and get a little physical. But it's a whole different level of physicality, especially the pro game. Like those guys are, beasts. Beasts. Greg says, Brandon, I think Stafford would have kept feeding DK and pulling a shootout win because it fits his style, his play style, but agreed it was more the defense's fault. Hawks didn't win instead of Geno, though. Hawks didn't win instead of Geno, though. Yeah, it's possible he could have done that. And we're going back a bit where I can't say this for sure, Greg, but I want to say that there was a lot more of in the first half, what the Niners did oddly with DK and where you got that production was that they went with the single coverage with Ward, and then they started to roll the doubles back over to him in the second half, which would have been harder, I think, to feed in on DK with that if it was Stafford. But we'll never know on that one. It's hard to say if it would have played out differently. I do think it gets, whether it's Stafford, Greg, or whether it's Geno, though, I think when you have any team going into a playoff scenario where they're playing on the road, and we just take it down to kind of this simplistic state where the defense is not going to get any stops today, and your offense has to score every time they have the ball. I think when we're talking about a playoff scenario, there's very few quarterbacks in that kind of scenario that are coming back out the other side and finding the win. That's probably a loss for 98% of the quarterbacks in the sport. Tyler Lockett might have a decline too, Seahawks gaming. You're right there. He's been mildly productive, but maybe he's about due for where it's like, okay, you do finally feel like this will be the last year for sure. He's hit the wall. It's possible. His route running is just so good. You figure he at least get himself a little bit of productivity from where he's at right now. But I think that's a good suggestion of a player too. I do. Seahawks gaming says Uchenna. Uchenna maybe. He's not exactly coming off a great year with the injury, so you don't have it's kind of hard to pin, but off of what he did 2 years ago, yeah. Maybe possible, especially coming off that major injury. The Bomber excited for Team Brando 4 more months. I really like the starting lineup. Only position I don't like is safety and interior offensive line. Those remain the only couple positions I am also a little bit worried about Bomber, and those are ones I think in the long term we talk about getting a year out from now that'll be probably heavily addressed at one point or another. But they do remain the ones that you sort of worry about as you look and go, I hope these don't come up and bite us. We'll just have to see how Jenkins, like you say, Jenkins and Love, they both fit to this defense, King Bomber. They both are great fits with the split safety stuff. It just comes down to them getting the chemistry together and acclimating properly to this defense. I think Love especially will be ready to go within it. Jenkins will probably take a little bit more time. Greg says KG couldn't believe DK played the entire seasons on a broken foot when he interviewed him the year Geno became the starter. Yeah, that's part just one of those things I love about DK is he plays every week and he's played injured. Yeah, the one year with the broken foot. He's had the ligament in his leg, and he's had the ribs that I think he had to play through last year where he had broken ribs going on. Still plays, Still productive, still plays hard in the run game, hard as a pass catcher, clutch in big moments. There's just so much he brings to the table. And as we're talking about, like we had, as easy as KG goes, I can't believe that. It's like, yeah, basketball player gets that broken foot and like, okay, I'm out for 3 months. I'll probably miss the season, okay? I'm probably done. Football players just like rub some dirt on it and wrap it up. Save the geese. Remember when DK stole Deron Bland's lunch money on prime time? Bland was an all-pro last season, and DK dominated him like a punk. That's who DK can be if we just unleash him. Agreed, man. Agreed. Another good point on all this, and the reason I don't like to get rid of DK is not just because of what he's brought, who he is, and his consistency, and playing through toughness, and every year you can count on him, every game you can count on him, but also because there remains, in my opinion, that untapped upside still there within his game. Untapped production that you can still mine from his game. Lizo says Byron Murphy was winning all of his matchups with Cooper Beebe. Well, let's go. I'm working on the Byron Murphy vid right now in the background. It's going to take me forever on this one, but I'm going to get it up at some point on the channel. Greg says, Brandon, Chiefs tried to get Wilt Chamberlain to play tight end for them back in the day, and they even worked him out and timed him. He was running a 4.6 while weighing between 290 and 310 pounds. Well, that back then, it definitely would have worked. Back then, especially for Wilt, because Wilt was one of those, I think you'd agree, Greg, truly unique, talented guy. Not talent, but unique physical builds. Because, that's a guy that is reportedly like bench 350 at his size with those gargantuan long arms. Like, he was insanely strong. And so he might have been a guy back then who might have been able to handle that a little bit more than your average NBA player of today, for instance. He certainly had a one where you go, I could have seen how that would have worked. I could have with that one. Like, a guy like LeBron, the way he's built, probably can handle. But a lot of these basketball players are so thinly, wisply put together that first time they take a hit on the field, they would be knocked about 5 yards through the air, and then they probably have a lung collapse or something. But Wilt was really freakish. He was really freakish. Regardless, I hope Grubb can unlock the offense. We have way too much talent to be way too much talent to be this bad. I'm hoping it's just the O-line holding us back. Well, I think it's a couple things, Ricardo, but it's things that they've taken steps to fix. O-line certainly is a big part of what holds you back there. There's no doubt about that. When you're 20th in pass protection, that's going to be a problem. When you can't open holes in the run game, that's going to be a problem. Some of this, though, also comes back to, Ricardo, the lack of running outside. How little I mentioned about that stat with Kenneth Walker, and that he averaged 5.3 yards per carry outside of tackle runs. Tackles to the outside of their shoulders, 5.3 yards per carry. Everything inside, 3.8 yards per carry. So what has the team been doing the past couple of years? They've been hammering him inside 65% of the time and then running him outside 35% of the time. Those numbers don't add up, do they? But these are also easily correctable numbers for a guy like Grubb to come in and fix. How about I just flip those items? Instead of leaning on the inside runs with a guy like Walker, I'll leave that for Charbonnet, and we'll start using Walker to the edges. How about instead of being a team that's 32nd in the league at targeting the middle of the field, we get ourselves somewhere into maybe middle of the road neighborhood? Hell, even take yourself to 20th. And that'd be a substantial difference. And you would push teams out of a tendency of not paying as much close attention to the middle of the field when playing Seattle Seahawks. So there is, I think, a lot there Grubb can easily, without having to be super brilliant or inventive, he can unlock. Just kind of straightforward, do it this way, and you will find success. He's got to do more beyond that. But I like him as a hire, Greg, and I think that he is a guy that did show UW that he can have a lot of different really nice weapons and utilize all those weapons, not have to just lean on one weapon at a time once during the game. And this game will have 10 catches, and then next game will have this guy 10. It's like Jalen would get his touches, and Odunze would get his touches, and McMillan, when he was healthy, would get his touches, and the back would make sure he got his carries, and they'd get both the tight ends, maybe a catch or two throughout the game within there as well. Everybody got to kind of mix through there. It's hard to kind of get a pinpoint on Grubb and his offense, but he was also utilizing all of his really good weapons in addition to that. Chris is surprised Wilt would have had time for other activities outside of basketball and women. Yeah, he probably, and why would he go play football at that time too? It's like football might have been a little bit bigger sport, but it's like he was doing just fine. And yeah, I mean, what did breakdown do? He was having to have like sex, I think like 3 times a day every day for 30 years to hit his, I think he said 10,000 or something like that. So he was way too busy. Imagine how exhausted and how much your hips would hurt, your knees would hurt. Doing that much, you're already a basketball player, run up down the court, then you're doing all that on addition to it. Like my body's tapped at that point. Like just put me in ice in the bed at night. And Bido says Brando's the GOAT. Thank you, Bido. Appreciate you, man. That's kind of you to say, bro. Fly says, I think Ryan Grubb will be better than Shane Waldron. I think Pete was telling Shane Waldron to not throw the ball in the middle of the field. You kind of touch on the reason exactly, I think, as much as any reason why he will be better. We'll see what it comes to as far as those guys and who's the better sequencer of plays, and does Grubb have maybe a little bit more of an ability to kind of get into that kind of flow state that it would sometimes seem like Waldron couldn't get into. There'd be some games, especially when we play the Lions, that he definitely seemed to be like right there and have the calls in the right spot. There'd be other games where just he would be lost. Hopefully Grubb's a little bit better with that. But I agree with you. I think a lot of what was inhibiting Shane Waldron was, I think that there was some influence there from Coach Carroll. And it doesn't matter whether it's a lot or a little bit. I think that head coaches influencing offensive coordinators or head coaches influencing their defensive coordinators in that way at times is really not helpful to the coordinators in doing their job right. I think it more starts to get them thinking about extra things that they shouldn't be thinking about and what determines the play call or not. We'll see, though, with Grubb. I have a lot of confidence in him, too, though, Fly Zone. I do. Chris says his claim was 20,000. Yeah, so 20,000 women. You know how tired you are after playing basketball, a 4 o'clock game, then you come home and like, okay, another hour and a half of me, rocking and rolling tonight. Your body's done. Greg says, Brandon, yeah, Wilt and Bill Russell both could have went to the Olympics as track stars with the numbers they were putting up in the high jump during that time. Yeah, they just super. It's those athletes I talk about, Greg, that are they're sort of freaks both for their time and they're sort of timeless freaks as well a little bit, right? And it's like 40 years later, a Wilt Chamberlain still would be freakish, even in NBA standards now, I think. Will was more like 6'8", 6'9", but I think he's still, see on that one. But it's like, we were talking about this in the last stream, if you go to the 80s, you got your, Jordan and your Mike Tyson and your Bo Jackson before his hip injury. Maybe Dion, but there's those unique guys that come through that are just built different, not just built different. They're freakish, but just, they're just athletic freaks. Really are. Brian says, I'm sorry, 20,000 women is like twice per day for 10 straight years. I'm not saying I don't know if I buy it, but who knows, man? Maybe he had a whole system and, maybe he had it all like every city he went through. He had it like all lined up. I hear these players go to these hotels and the women are just in the hotels and they walk in. And he just walked in the hotel and be like, you. And you. Not you. You. Maybe you, not with the bra next time. Brian says, I think Mike McDonald will give Grubb plenty of autonomy to call the offense he wants to. I agree. It's part of my belief on this as well, Brian, is that, if you are a hands-on kind of coach like McDonald is, or would be, theoretically, and you're looking to inhibit your offense, I think he would have gone the route which was right there for him to have seen before and just take it up again. Where he says, I'll go get the Roman acolyte, the former offensive coordinator for the Ravens, who was there, of course, and walked in the door for Lamar when he first came in and was the Niners coordinator when Colin Kaepernick was there, right? I'll go get the quarterback that can just kind of run a read option game. We'll be heavy on the run. We'll protect my defense. We'll try to control the time of possession. We'll protect my defense. Will not be super risky offensively. We'll protect my defense. That kind of mentality of a guy that does exist. This is an archetype of a head coach, defensive head coach that exists in this league and may have to a small degree have existed even with Coach Carroll here at the end. But McDonald in hiring Grubb would seem to indicate that that's not what he's really looking to not really looking to, do, because he hired the opposite of the Roman guy. He didn't go for the run heavy, unimaginative, protect my defense type. He went for the spread concepts type guy. And that to me is a really big action that speaks very strongly about Mike McDonald being a guy who looks at it and says, you know what? It isn't about that. That's not a smart way to go, to say it's going to be all on my defense and my offense just has to not mess it up. That's not a way to win. Instead, all of those advantages, all of the ways I seek to try to take advantage of wherever we can take advantage defensively to confuse and mess up offenses, I want to do that on the offensive side of the ball too, because that will build out the best team. That will give us the best possible chances for being a championship team. Then it's on my general manager. Then it's on actually having the talent to get it done. It's nothing about my scheme at that point, because you can look at my offense, you can look at my defense, check. And I think that he's done that with these actions of his hire of Grubb. And that's why I love Grubb so much as a hire, and that's why we should get so much hyped up about what McDonald's doing here, because he's not playing it safe. He's not trying to take the same road some other coaches take. And here's the way Harbaugh went, and here's the way his brother went, and I got to go down that same road because it's tried and true, and it's what they taught me. Instead, he seems to be a little bit more forward-thinking in his understanding of this. The thing that had Bill Belichick at the height of his powers, where Bill Belichick was at his best, was when his an imaginative defense could come at you from every which way but loose. He could run all of the packages and formations and display all of the brilliance that he brings as a tactician, as a defensive-minded head coach. And then he also allowed the offense to be one of the first offenses in the NFL to be open to spread concepts. He did those things in tandem. And it elongated out the Patriots dynasty because he made that choice. But few defensive-minded head coaches can go down that road. Most want to come back to the safety. Most want to come back to protect my defense. Most come back to offense, just do enough, and my defense will carry the day. He's not done that. And it's very exciting to see. Flag says, hour and a half? Jesus, don't tell my wife. I wasn't saying I pull that off. You know what I mean? I'm just picturing an athlete in his prime. I mean, let's be real with it, you know? They got a little extra rolling through. There's probably a little bit more stamina in there than some of us middle-aged guys, you know? It's the way it goes sometimes. Greg says, Brandon, I should have added that when Wilt worked out for the Chiefs, it was in a suit and dress shoes. That makes a ton of sense. He ran a 4.6 still in the dress shoes. He would back, especially then, Greg, with all those guys that were like 5'5" on the football field. I mean, could you imagine him getting the ball and just throwing people right and left? Because that's a literal monster at that point. I mean, that's 7 guys, 7'1", with guys that are 5'5" and 5'7" on the football field at like 160 pounds, 150 pounds. You know, just smacking guys out of the way. You could hit guys in the helmet back then. Cardo says, that just sounds gross to me. Just stick to one you like, laughing out loud. That'd be a bit much to me, for me, too much as well, Ricardo. You'd think you'd get to like 5,342 in and you'd be like, I think I've probably slept with every type there's to sleep. Maybe I just need to pick one here I can kind of roll into. You know, you think you kind of hit your mark where the oats had been sown. Yeah. He was sowing those Montana oats. Yeah. I got to hit the whole state. I got 10,000 square miles. I got to cover here. A lot of oats. Need a lot of oats in the ground here. Fly Zone, Paul Allen, Bill Gates started as Microsoft. Paul Allen saved the Seahawks. Too bad the Sonics left. Too bad, man. Yeah. Flag says Bruce Arians would call the Grubb hire a risk it for the biscuit. Let's go. That's just what it is, man. I agree with that. It's one that, you know, certainly cannot work. It can have a failure rate on this, but it's not going to fail because it's being conservative. It's not going to fail because he was the easy choice. It's going to fail because they shot for the moon and they just kind of flew past the orbit a little bit. But you give me the choices of the two, And I feel like conceptually, I'll apply this all across football, all across the board. We can apply it to going for it on fourth down, whether to kick it, whether to go for it. You give me a team that's trying to go out there and take it. You give me a coach who's trying to find every innovation and every advantage he possibly can, not only within how he structurally sets it up on both sides of the ball, but by the hires he makes on his coaching staff. I will always support that. And like you said it, Bruce Arians said it right. No risk it, no biscuit. Yeah. You want that warm biscuit? You want that butter melting on top, deep within the recesses of that dough? Want to take that bite where that butter explodes on into your mouth? Well, you better be willing to risk something. What are you going to give up? Don says Vegas has us at 7.5 wins. I'll take the under. Ooh, Don coming in hot. I'll be right around there, Don. I think Vegas is kind of on the spot here. We have a new head coach. New head coach, new system, new things, new stuff. Sometimes this takes a year to kind of get right, and it could be that way this year. Greg says, Brandon, NBA used to measure players barefoot, so Bill Russell, 6'9", would be 6'11" now, but he was basically Ben Wallace, Dennis Rodman size, while Wilt would have been listed at 7'2" or 7'3" instead of 7'1". Oh, okay. I didn't know they do that in the shoes. That's interesting. Yeah, Wilt was a monster for that time. There wasn't a lot of 7-foot guys just walking around, especially built like that. It's like he came out of a factory or something. Fly says it was refreshing because Mike wants his own history on the walls. Yes, sir. Greg says Brandon Wilt got to enjoy the free love era. That probably would have made it hard too, right, Greg? It was a different time. It was a different age. Everybody was just friendly with everybody. You'd say hello, and suddenly you'd be in the bedroom. Those hippies didn't mess around, man. You got the Tinders and all that today. That ain't nothing. That ain't nothing compared to 1969. Buck wild. Random Hawks fan, yo, checking in on with my boy B. What's up? What's up, Random Hawks fan? Don says it's not a mystery. We got an offensive coordinator who understands pre-snap shifts and motions to get you to read. Cut you off there a little bit, Don. Chris says, I've got a girlfriend that's almost 15 years younger than 50-year-old me, so I'm doing my best to keep up, but it's rough. She wearing you out, Chris? She wearing you out? You over there just like, yeah. Just give me a sec. It's tough getting old, bro. Tough getting old. This defense is trash bag, lips to become pig. We'll only win if Gino throws up 30 plus. Be interesting to see, Don. We'll see what Mike can do. Maybe he can work some magic in there, but it will be interesting to see if he can pull it off. Brian, I think the offense will hit the ground running. Defense, OTOH, is going to take some time to get this scheme right and work out the communications. Yeah, I agree. Definitely see the offense being the big driver a little bit next year, but whether or not it can hit or not next year, offensively or defensively, I'm putting together a little bit of a thumbnail right now for a video on the Clips channel that I'm going to drop where it's just, you have two different factors, new coach, all the things that he needs to fix up, all the things that he needs to clean up. And you got all of these advantages that you've sort of been leaving there that are easy advantages for the team to pick up and take advantage of. Targeting the middle of the field, creativity offensively speaking, running the ball to the edges, defensively, willingness to blitz. Can you get the tackling a little bit better, more 3 and outs? But there's these two different kind of factors button up against each other. One factor being something that could sink the season down to a 6-7 win-loss place, and other factors that could raise the team up to a place of 10, 11, 12 wins. And which side wins out, which is the one that'll be the way that this plays out, there's hard to say. We'll just have to see how it goes. And Hawks fans says Jax with a big year. I think so. Random Seahawks fan, yeah. I think he definitely cuddles right up there to around 1,000 yards this season. I do. Like says, hopefully Julian Love does a lot more than just pointing the first half of the season. He was doing a lot of pointing for those first 4 or 5 games, wasn't he? And still getting things confused post-snap, which was strange. he did settle in as the year went along, and he is a fit for this defense, having played for it with the Giants before. That's what got him got him a free agent contract with the Seahawks, was his play within that defense. So he's going to have as much familiarity as any defender on this D as to what he needs to do and where he needs to be, which should help in the transition. Just the conversations can wear me out at times. Okay, it's the conversations. Well, if you're going to get wore out by something, that's the good thing to be wore out by, I suppose. I think if I did younger, it'd be too much energy for me. I'm too much old man energy as it is right now. Well, he's angry to be playing this stream while I'm at the beach. I just know it. I'm psychic. Don says, bro, I watched Draymond Jones get pushed around like a blocking sled all season last year. Well, he's playing out of position some of the year, but wasn't necessarily lighting on the world up fire before he was moved out of position a little bit more. Random Hawks fan, does Sam Howell have any shot at starting? Not this upcoming year, random Hawks fan. I mean, he's 23 years old. He needs to do some development. He needs some time to kind of figure some things out, especially from the head up, how to deal with the blitz. Some of the skills that, frankly, Geno Smith has kind of built upon through the years. And develop a little bit more of that, I think, before he's ready to get back on the field. Could he push? Does he have the skill set to push Geno? He could. Am I anticipating it's really going to happen, though, this year? No, not this year. I think he's still got a little bit of ways to go. Michael Haynes says Seahawks should extend Julian Love for another 3 years. It's certainly a possibility, Michael. I think if he comes out and does fit to the defense as well as I think he will fit, if he was willing to take a little bit maybe of that not super crazy high-end deal, but something more kind of in the middle of the road, blue market kind of contract for a safety, I think there's room for them to get something done. Absolutely there is. So he is a fit. He made his bones in Wink Martindale's defense coming into this league. So definitely a fit to what we do. Don says, we got no roaming thumper that puts the fear into hearts of men. We do not. We do not. I will say it's hard to find those thumpers in this modern age of defenses, Don. There are more and more of these guys are getting legislated out of the game. But I'll give you don't really have a thumper as it stands in the defense. Witherspoon can hit a little bit, but it's hard when your best hitter is a cornerback. Let DK play both sides of the ball. Yeah, that would be fun. You're wrong about that. That'd be fun. Flagman, Julian Love has a lot of work to do to get an extension. Yeah. And again, it wouldn't be one to be the big extension flag. I'm just talking about maybe the player and team that you come to one of those deals where it's like, this makes sense for everybody. We're not just the player maxing out his value, but like, I like playing here. This defense fits me. I won't ask for the sun, moon, and stars. I'll just ask for half the moon. Will you pay that? Yeah, we'll pay you that. Okay, here's a 3-year extension, $20 million. Something like that. Seahawks game. What is Draymond's actual position? 5 tech? No, he's a 3 tech. He's a 3 tech. You played him out there not because that's his position, but because you had nobody out there that could do it other than him. It was by the necessity and by the fact that you had an address getting somebody out there on the edge that could hold up as a edge setter. He's a 3 tech though. Ricardo says somebody was posting Mike McDonald highlights on the Seahawks subreddit. The Ravens-Hawks game was embarrassing. Mike McDonald beat the Hawks protection schemes all game, even one passing play with 7 blockers versus 5. Indeed, I'll be doing a show a little bit around that, Ricardo, at some point here soon. So we'll be doing probably a combo show of looking like first, second half of that game and what he did. But yeah, it was a look away kind of game if you're the Hawk fan. Now, we're going to look at the film one more time just to kind of appreciate what Mike McDonald can do and how badly he can flummox on offense. But then we are going to burn the tape. We're going to take the tape and we're going to drop it into the Mariana Trench. And we're not putting a GPS tracker on it. Don says Spoon weighs like 170 pounds. It's not a thumper. Yeah, he's a thumper, Don. Whether you're a thumper or not, it's really not based on how much you weigh. You can either hit or you can't hit. It would be, again, to your point, is it ideal to find a guy a little bit bigger that can hit? It would. Again, though, the game's sort of taking this out of it a little bit. And we're not the only team. If you look around defenses across the league, who's the 49ers thumper? I mean, Who's their guy back there? Fred Warner's a great coverman and he can tackle. He's not a thumper. That's one of the better defenses in the league. The Baltimore Ravens last year. Who's the thumper in that defense? Roquan Smith's a really good tackler. Patrick Queen's okay. Hamilton's more of a coverman and a really solid tackler. He's not really a thumper. They didn't really have a thumper in that defense. This is more to do with, I think, the NFL doesn't allow thumpers to be out there and roll around anymore as much. They're few and far between. But yeah, Spoon had legitimately 3, 4, 5 some of the harder hits that we had last year. Random Hawks fan, does Jamal look better than last year after another offseason recovery? Might be able to get him on a cheap 1-year deal. You absolutely could get him on a cheap 1-year deal. There's a lot of reason to believe that another year removed from that injury that he would be a little bit better than last year, where the injury does tend to take one that's not just you're back in a year and you're fine. Sometimes you never come back all the way, but it certainly a lot of times will take 2 years to get yourself back up to snuff. So yeah, I would expect him to be better. I still don't think he's really a fit for this scheme though. He's a player with a very strict skill set in what he can and cannot do. This is a scheme that wants its players to kind of do everything. So I don't think there's really a fit for him other than kind of as a sub-role player. Random Hawks fan. Flag says, of course, Mike McDonald laid us up. We basically telegraphed our plays, just a vanilla D and O. We don't have the players to say this, what we're doing to try and beat us. Yeah, he took advantage of that. And that's definitely a truth on both sides of the ball in that way. But Mike McDonald also did that to a lot of offenses that were creative in this league too on top of that. Teams like the Niners last year. So it wasn't just, of course, us. That's how they won that Triple Crown, is that he will attack what you don't do well. You're vanilla. He's going to hit you with complexity all over the place. But yeah, we were fairly easy target in retrospect on that one. Marcus says, there's no chance in hell I could be with just one woman the rest of my life. That's like eating one food for the rest of your life. It'd be one that I would struggle with too myself, Marcus. I've never been married myself, and certainly been in a couple different long-term relationships, but that's a tough bridge to cross at times. That, okay, just this one. So it's a tougher road for some of us to cross than others, Marcus, on that one, especially for those of us who appreciate so many different women. The splendor, the beauty. Fly zone, Jerome Baker's a pretty interesting player. He is cut for cap reasons out there with Miami, not because he's a bad player, but because Miami was in a real tough cap situation. And they had to create some money, but right quick this offseason. So that tells you right there that you might have gotten a player that you're getting that's got some juice, got some actual decent level of play in what he can bring. It's just that outlying factors brought him to you. I like Jerome Baker, though. Always compete. Greetings, Brandon and the Nesters. I would take the over. Our team was competitive last year. He has inherited the best team of any new head coach. I love the confidence. Always compete. I'm with it. And as I will say on this, I think that there's a real logical reason to say that the team's got a wide disparity on what they could be next year. Might they be a 7-win team? You could see how that could play out. Could I see them become a 12-win team? Yeah, I could see how they could play out. Like you said, they've been competitive and they've got a lot of talent on this team. It really becomes about how fast that team can develop. Don says, big play Dre is a thumper. Sorry, spam. You mean Dre Greenlaw? Okay. Yeah, kind of. I don't know if he puts like the fear of hearts. I don't know if he puts like a Cam Chancellor-like effect out there in the way I think of a Rodney Harrison, in the way I would typically think of a thumper. But I don't know if a thumper is I guess what I'm trying to say, Don, is I don't know if a thumper is as required to make a great defense as it once was because of the legislation of the rules. Chris, Jamal would need to be on a vet minimum, and he would need to be limited to the scheme just as a blitz guy, I think. Yeah, blitz, sub-roll guy, up around the line of scrimmage, quasi-linebacker, depending on the formations you're going up against. Greg Brandon Wilt was put together weird. He was 7'1", 290, 310, and had the second longest arms of all time in NBA history, but somehow he had kind of a short torso with long legs and only wore a size 12. That is really weird. Yeah. All that does not seem to go to... It's a guy. It's like a kid that's made the player and the create a player in a basketball like 2K. Like, and he'll have short legs and he'll have tiny hands, but he'll have long arms, a gigantic head. The proportions just don't. How does that? What? Or how does? I don't. What? Carter says, "I'm sorry, but a competent team should be getting beat 7-on-5, no matter how good the scheme is. There was something really bad with our coaching last year." Yes, agreed. It just put it on brightest display, I suppose. Fly Zone, the only reason why San Francisco went to Super Bowl is because all their starting players were healthy. Half of our starters were injured last year. Kind of. They also have updated schemes on both sides of the ball that helps. Another place where that, like Above was talking about, we were lacking a little bit. You know what I mean? No, Mike. Don Dre was killing fools in the Super Bowl. Casey had pouty face until he went out. All right. I mean, he's capable. I don't know if I feel like I walk in a Niner game going, man, I didn't worry about Dre Greenlaw hitting one of our guys. Always compete. Woolen had one of the hardest hits last year. I can't remember what team it was against. Anyone remember? It sounds somewhat familiar. Spacing a little bit though. Just a little bit. Hey, let's go ahead and thank the sponsor of this show. It's a good time to do so. Thank sponsor, which will be Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy tomorrow is going to start having a very special offer that they're going to put into play, where they will match you up to 100% of your deposit, and it's actually going to be up to $250 if you do this tomorrow for a short period of time. So if you use my code NEST and you go to Underdog Fantasy, they will match you up to $250 of your first deposit tomorrow. So a great deal that they're bringing down the plane, even above what they normally bring for you guys as far as those here on the Nest. All you got to do is use my code NEST or click the link in the top of the description, which I haven't included here, but I'll put that in here as I sign off today. And they will take care of you real well there. So 250, some great ongoing matches. They actually have a pick 'em too that you get in your favor as well. So they kind of give you a freebie pick on a player that's an easy win as you put together a little bit of that sort of parlay kind of action on things. So really cool, really, really, really cool situation there with Underdog Fantasy here right now with $250 in your pocket right now. Not now, but tomorrow, March 9th, when it will go down. Up to $250 of your first deposit there when you utilize Underdog Fantasy. So thank you to Underdog Fantasy for sponsoring the Hawks Nest throughout the course of this year. It is really, really well appreciated, and I will get that link here into the top of the description section, as I'm sure that offer will be a short-time offer, so you want to jump on that one. Get the last couple of questions on in here into the chat, and then we'll kind of put a bit of a wrap-up on this one. I'm starting to get a little bit hungry myself over here. Brian says, yeah, I got to bounce. Good timing, V. See, I knew. I could sense. Wallen laid out the Titans player, but he also got himself knocked out. That's never a good trade-off. How you doing, kid? You want to say hey, everybody? You want to say what's up? Say what's up to everybody. Yeah, say hey. Holy Game, yeah, I'll be on Twitch on Friday for sure. I don't know if we'll be doing the Helldivers yet, but I will be on. Yeah, it was the Titans. Wallen's hit against the Panthers. I thought it was the Titans one. Sounds right. I can't quite remember. I'm hangry. I forget once I get hangry. And we'll see on Don. We'll have to see on Byron Murphy. I think he'll be a factor, but he's coming to a position that's pretty well stocked on this team too. So it's not necessarily where he's going to be out there day one starting for you. But just come in, find a role this first season, show us what part of what made you that first round pick, and let's see where this can go. Oh, the hit and bounce. Yeah, that's the one. Okay, I remember that one. That was the Titans. Yeah, that was the hit and bounce one. That's the one. Sentai says, hello, Kitty. Kitty says, hello. He's super happy. She's loving the new play. She's loving this new place here. Loving it. Loving it, I tell you. Roxanne in the house. Finishing us off right here in the Hawks Nest with a $10 donation. Roxanne, thank you so much for that. I really do appreciate you. Just be well, all. thank or give thanks for your moms and go Hawks. So I will for sure on that side of it. I appreciate that, Roxanne. And thank you for the donation, finishing us off right here in the chat. It's good to see you as well. Appreciate you guys watching today. If you could do me a favor and slap down that like button, just drill that like button if you could for me. I would really appreciate it. I also have linked here at the top of the chat a link to my Hawks Nest Clips channel. This is a channel that's going to continue to be a big part of what we do here at the Hawks Nest. It's a long requested item from people who say, hey, can you get some truncated clips from the show, from the live stream show over onto it, so we can kind of easier to digest. I don't have 5 hours of time to kind of go through all of it. Point taken, point heard. Your wish is my command. So the Hawks Nest Clips channel is live. You can click it in the top of this chat. Sub on up to that. I will be releasing probably for the next foreseeable future. We'll be trying to get at least 1, 2, 3 videos a day up over on that channel, taken off of the live stream shows. So if you're interested in that, please do go check that out over there. Please do sub up over there. Love to get over 1,000 if we could, as we're about 800 over there, right on the button, right very close to it. So thank you. Please hit that like button. Please do subscribe up. Please do subscribe on the Hawks Nest Clips. I got so many things I need you guys to do. Okay, I'm very, very needy. I always compete. How is Pumpkin like in San Diego? She loves it. We're a bottom floor spot now, so she can see outside. She's looking at birds. She's staring out the window a lot. She's getting in the sunbeams, but she's liking it. A little more space to move around where we're at here at this place. Pretty good. Good. I did see the sumo wrestler going up against Micah Parsons, Don. He got Micah at first, but then Micah locked in and got a little serious and then took him out. Flyzone says, just imagine if Draymond Jones was Deron Payne or DeForest Buckner, our defense would be really scary. People would take us serious in that division. Yes, they would. He's not quite that, but he's really good. He's really good. Don says, thanks for doing the stream. Subbed up. Thank you, Don. You're the man, man. You're the man. I appreciate you for doing that, and thanks for being part of the chat as well on this. I really appreciate you guys on that help keep the chat going here with the comments and the subjects and turn over different things and different items. Really appreciate you guys on that. Mike Morris and Derek Hall, I'm super, super excited about too here, Greg, going forward. I think certainly with the Derek Hall, he's going to be giving you a lot better play from what you saw from him last year. I think there's some real potential in that kid. And with Mike, interesting to see if he goes back to that hard edge role here in this defense or if he does stay inside at the 3-tech with Mike McDonald. That'll be the fun part on that. Chen is another guy. He was having still a really solid year last year before he went down, Don. He didn't have like a lot of sacks, but he was providing the pressure. He was taking the double teams. He was allowing Boye Mafi to flourish a little bit and being a good all-around defender at that on top of it. Boys Handgrade says, do you think we're going to do these mock games now that Pete is gone? I do think you're going to do the scrimmage stuff. Yeah. I think that McDonald will try to make that happen. I think it's a big benefit to getting teams prepared for the NFL season and getting the intensity level up, helping with getting tackling better. Yeah. I think that McDonald's going to lean into that, and I think you'll see a value into that. And I agree with it. I'd love to see the team do that, match up with the team and kind of get into that a little bit. Be good. Be real good. Well, I thank you guys tonight for watching. I appreciate Randall, Roxanne, and everyone else on all the donations. Very kind of you guys for that. And do please, again, just hit that like button one more time as we walk on out. We are moving through the off season. I will be back here on Sunday with an outlook here on. I'm going to try to do kind of a grub outlook here on Sunday and what he's going to provide here to this team, what the offense he's going to provide to this team. So be on the lookout for that. I thank you guys again for great community posts here in the chat. Just great discussion as always. It's always that way walking in here, and I really do thank you guys for that. I will be back very, very, very soon. But until that time, please don't you ever forget. Please just don't let it happen, okay? It happens sometimes. I get it, but let's stop, okay? Don't forget. Don't you ever forget. Go Hawks.